Could we do it? Have we done it? Live. We did it. We've done it. Glory be and mercy me. We've done it yet again. Here we are. Another Monday. Mondays, as Garfield reminds us. All right, Mondays. We didn't do it. How you doing, Eric? I hope you had a good weekend, bud. You do anything fun over the weekend? I know for me it was just a grind into capitalism, right? As always, right? You go, you do your capitalist work, justify your existence. One thing I will say, I like the people I work with. I like the people around me. I do feel like they care and they're trying. Hey Watson, how you doing, bud? Good to see you. Hope you guys had a good weekend. I know many of you are working your 9-to-5ers, right? And hope beyond hope that you're doing something to try to forget about all this nonsense that we're going through, you know?
I created surplus value for my employer today. I'm helping. Participation.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, right? There's something, I don't know if I should talk about it, but there's something happening at my workplace. So, my place just got sold. So, suddenly, we have new bosses, we have new owners. And it looks like they're going to just allow things to unfold the way they've been unfolding, like minor changes here and there, but it's still deeply unsettling to me. Like, I find it very unsettling that I basically show up to work and I'm told, oh, hey, you have a new owner now, right? Oh, hey, you know, this place that you're relying on for your livelihood? Well, here's some new people. I don't know if I'm fucked yet, Watson, but definitely, like, I don't know who these guys are. Like, I don't know the first thing about them. And it's just unsettling, right? Like, it's unsettling that the place that I rely on to get my food and shelter can just transfer hands like this. Like, just literally, like, oh, who are these people? What's going on? I find it to be, like, very odd, in fact, right? And it's not the first time I've lived through it. Like, back when I was working corporate jobs, right? That kind of trade over would happen all the time. And it's really, really messed up. Like, one of the things that's settling me down a little bit is that I'm pretty sure these guys are interested, like, they are interested in what the thing that we're doing actually is, right? And that goes a long way. Like, I've worked in places where ownership has traded hands, and it's very obvious, like, instantly, that the people who bought the place could care less about what you're doing and like the culture you're creating or any of the ideas that existed before, that they really do view it like, I put money on the table for this and I expect money to come out of it, and we could be making paper clips for all I care, and as long as it's a good investment that gives me money. And I've worked at places where they explicitly, I can't go into too much detail on this, but like, they explicitly buy the place in order to expand it and then resell it, and then they have trouble selling it, especially over the COVID period, right? And so they have to make all kinds of decisions. And what decisions do they make? It's always squeeze as much as they can out of the workforce, right? So we'll see how it goes. Who knows? It's like I'm sitting here just waiting for disaster to happen. You know, that's what it feels like sitting over here. Like, I'm waiting for my rent to suddenly double. I'm waiting for an eviction notice to come because they want to renovate the whole place. They want to turn this unit into 2 units or something. I'm just waiting for some kind of shoe to drop, and suddenly I'll be evicted, and rent in this city now, the average rent is $2,500. I'm waiting for, I'm waiting for anything. And when you're living in a capitalist system, you're perpetually in that state, right? You can kind of take it and put it aside, right? You can kind of take it and put it off to the side and sort of try to forget about it while you live your life. But it's always the case that eventually capitalism will rear its head and you'll be evicted, or you'll lose your job, or you'll lose you'll diminish in your wages, or something will always happen. And it really feels like I'm sitting here kind of waiting for it to happen, you know? Do tents by the 401 have Wi-Fi? Good to see you grinning. Yeah, I'm waiting to buy a box truck to renovate. I honestly believe everyone should listen to that podcast, which Doing Nothing is always listening to the Revolutionary and Ideology podcast, finished Myth is America. Yeah, you've been really talking about this one a lot, Eric. And you got me into One Piece, so I haven't had the time to listen to really anything, or I shouldn't say I haven't had the time, but just I haven't prioritized this one. I honestly believe that everyone should listen to that podcast if they want to understand the history of the U.S. system. And I think that's another reason why I'm not gung-ho about this Revolutionary and Ideology podcast, is because I do know a lot about the history already, and so but there's something nice about retrotting, old knowledge but with a new voice. There is something nice about that, right? Like, so even though you go through like Howard Zinn and you go through Parenti and you go through all these guys, it's still nice to see another group and another person pick up the baton, And maybe I should actually try to invest more time into it just for that reason. Because this is one of the things I think about all the time, right? Aren't you guys worried that we're going to start losing people like Noam Chomsky? We've already, like, Parenti is still technically alive, but we've lost him. We're going to lose people like Hedges, right? We're going to lose people like Cornel West. Like, we're going to lose these people, right? And there's always this sort of lingering perpetual fear that exists in my heart that as we lose these guys, there's not going to be anybody there to pick up the baton, right? Like, who is like under the age of 40 or under the age of 50 who's really trying to keep the struggle alive? Yeah, Mopping, right? Like, I mean, I could point at myself, obviously, but like, and I mean, there is somebody like Hassan, right? Hassan's not doing, like, the stuff he's doing is not illegitimate. I do wish that he was driving more people into protest movements. He seems very complacent, would be the word. So I just wonder. Yeah, I agree with this as well. Like, I feel like I like Socialism for All. I actually really like his stuff, and when he posts, I try to pay attention because I find him to be quite intelligent. But I feel like he gets caught up in something that I think a lot of people get caught up in, which is sort of debate broism, right? That instead of keeping our eye focused on the powerful, instead of keeping our eye focused on the money and the system and commenting on the structure of the system, and instead of focusing on the truth of that and building a group on that, you can get caught in this sort of debate broism, right? And I find that whole, like, I'm going to go talk to, I don't know, Destiny or Vosh, right? And we're going to, like, all this. And really all it is it's just a way to swap followers, right? To just have your own followers and like, these followers and these followers come together and like then and suddenly now you get a little portion of theirs and they get a little portion of yours and all that. That's the reason why Peterson debated Harris, for example, right? Like, I don't think either of them really cared what the other one had to say or thought, really. I thought that they just wanted each other's followers, right? And so there's this, like, and from a marketing standpoint, that makes a type of sense, right? From a marketing standpoint, it makes sense. But I just worry that it's turning everything into like we're not actually trying to achieve anything except like build your own business, right? Like, and someone like Hassan, for example, I worry that about him. Like, is he actually trying, or does he even believe that he could build some kind of social movement, right? Or is he just running a business and that's his brand, Yeah, but the thing about Moppin, right? Like, it says he's actually getting out and he's doing stuff. You know, like it's very tough for me to want to critique people who are actually getting out there and actually doing stuff. You know, like to me that unless you can point at them and say that they're actually dangerous, which I don't think Moppin is dangerous. I think it's right to critique someone like Moppin and point some. There are inconsistencies in the way that he views things. I think that he's trying to maintain the idea, like the positive views of America. He's trying to create a kind of American socialism, right? He's trying to like really the veneration of Lincoln. You can see, like, for God's sakes, in one of the things there was like a big Lincoln head that they had that was like very angular and all of this, and it's there's an inconsistency there for sure, but at the same time, you know, they're getting out there and they're doing it. You know, they're getting out there and they're doing it, and you're always gonna like. And this is the thing that I've learned is that you're always going to be able. You're always going to be able to find something about someone you don't like. It's always the case, right? That's why for the longest time I gave Peterson the benefit of the doubt, right? Not to turn this into a whole Peterson thing again. Of course, I've been thinking about him a lot this weekend. He seems to keep popping up, right? But like, Burgess was strong against force the vote. Yeah, I have a hard time taking him seriously. Yeah, the force the vote moment was a big dividing moment amongst people that you may consider leftists in America, right? Like Sam Cedar was on one side and Dorr was on the other, and all that. So force the vote ends up being a big flag moment, and all sides are sort of right, but I mean nobody's actually talking about it the way that I talk about it. No, I shouldn't say nobody, but like I don't think that force the vote moment was as important as people thought it was, right? Like it was revealing from a narrative standpoint, it was more revealing, but like really like it shows you that it's WWE politics, like it's not real politics, right? I've been watching David Corter lately. I don't think I know, Donald Corter lately. I don't think I know Donald Corter. So there's someone. We have Owen Jones, another one that I don't know. Yeah, when you're hanging around with Nazbols, Pat socks like Dugan, you're not a leftist. Yeah, the narrative that's coming out of sort of the. Like, there is a narrative that comes out of groups, and which is, like, we should reach across to the right, and we should try to get as many people as we can. Like, aren't we trying to build a coalition, right? Aren't we trying to build a coalition? And isn't part of building a coalition reaching out to all people along the spectrum? And as long as we can move forward on agenda items, on policy issues, then really the philosophical position. And I see where they're coming from on that, but I worry that they're setting themselves up to get corrupted pretty quickly. You know, like, you start making concessions, but I mean, like, the counter narrative to that, in my view, is to create a leftist movement that's so strong that people don't need to go across the aisle like that, right? Yeah, that's Dorr and his idiotic red-brown alliance garbage. That's exactly right. But the only reason they're talking that way is because when they look to the left, they don't see anything, right? There's nothing actually going on the left as far as people like Dorr and people like Dugan and people like Moppin are concerned, right? Like, so you kind of have to appreciate this sort of position, right? Yes, absolutely. The Strasserite that was here 2 weeks ago was wanting that for sure. No, and it's not so, like, I'm not going to reach across to these guys. Like, I'm not going and finding the Nazbols, because I think that what we should be doing is actually building a leftist movement, right? And my perspective on it, like, I don't judge them for doing it, because I think that when there is no left, it is a viable strategy, right? Like, and I understand it. Like, I'm not a fan of it. I wish it wasn't so, but there isn't a leftist movement that exists in America and Canada. Not really. And so that's what we're doing here, right? To build a proper leftist movement and to build something that disincentivizes this idea of, well, maybe we can reach out to the right and get people and blah blah blah, do the Red Brown Alliance and all that kind of stuff, right? Like, that's how you actually stop that, right? You don't just sort of like scoff at it and say, aha, what a bunch of losers. You say, oh, okay, like that's how weak the left has become. The left is so weak that seems viable, right? And so the strategy for us is to just keep building a proper leftist movement and something that has some legs under it and has some strength to it. Here in Toronto, I can point at Socialist Action, right? Their link is in the description, right? They're running candidates municipally, right? So they're trying to actually get people into municipal office. They don't have any illusions. They're not tricking themselves that it's actually going to happen, but that's a proper leftist movement, right? So they're a proper leftist movement that's actually trying to gain some legitimate power and run things legitimately. And I take a look at Fight Back. Fight Back's another one that is building an intellectual kind of coalition that I don't see them doing anything in terms of like actually getting into the street or protest or any of this. But if a group like Fight Back and a group like Socialist Action got together, because it looks like Socialist Action is the one that's pushing in terms of actually running candidates, but they need numbers. They need people to actually come out and vote. And that looks to me to be something like Fight Back, right? And then, of course, you have people like me who are just sort of the wild man in the wilderness. And my hope is that all of that kind of leftist energy can come together and actually do something to make it so that people won't even think, oh, we should reach out to the right and do all that kind of stuff, because it will be less incentivized. It won't be so positive, right? Or it won't be seen as so viable. Whereas right now, like the Red Brown Alliance stuff, it seems viable for these people, and that's why they're doing it. The biggest problem that we face is that we need to stop fighting with each other, work as a whole, yeah? I think that's exactly the case. That's exactly right. Yeah. Peterson sounds so much angrier now than he's ever been. Yeah, because that's all he's got left. Like, it's all he's got left, right? Like, he's essentially been discredited intellectually. So all he's got left is just, like, firebrand anger, right? And people respond to that, right? People respond to that. I didn't actually say hi to you, Isaac or Watson. Or, sorry, not Watson. I mean, hi, Watson. But Chris, how you guys doing? Glad you're here. I always worry that I'm going to hit record on a Monday and everyone's going to be like, oh yeah, John, oh well, he'll be fine without me, and then nobody will be here. I'm starting to realize that politics requires a unification of the base and a superstructure. Yes. For instance, Christian socialism or nationalism plus leftism. Yeah, every movement is going to divide somehow. All political parties are coalitions of groups, right? Like that's something that like people tend to think about, like the Conservative Party, for example, here in Canada, as like a homogenous one group, right? So, and it's the same with the NDP and the Liberals and all that kind of stuff. That it's like, oh, this is just like one group, a block of people, and it's not true. It's always a coalition. Right? And so in the Conservative Party, that coalition is church organizations, right? Business, right? Business coalitions, and corporate power structure, stuff like that, lobby groups. And the threat for the Conservatives right now is that they know that if they don't win this next election, some of these people are going to start breaking off and start joining other groups. So some of the Christian groups that exist within the Conservative Party could start breaking off and start going PPC's way, right? And then you'd have the classic like reform conservative break that occurs on the right. And you have something of a similar story happening on the left. Well, the center right. I mean, here in Canada, honestly, but what's called the left, where you have the unions typically are underneath the NDP, and then the managerial class and the intelligentsia, so to speak, typically are liberals. So it's the like liberal NDP divide exists itself as like a fractured left. And you could see the same thing happen with the Conservatives if they lose this election, which I don't think they will. I think they're going to win. Yeah. Ever since he joined the Daily Wire, he's getting sponsored left, right, and center. I mean, yeah, of course. It's just eyeballs, right? Like, it's just eyeballs. Corporate power doesn't care if you are right. It cares if people look at you. That's it. That's the long and short of it. Like, if a million people look at you every single day, then suddenly whatever you're saying, it'll be like, oh, hey there, kids, I think that too, right? As long as you buy their shit. Simple as that. Yeah, the euro has sunk, for sure it has. It can't do anything else, right? It can't do anything else. So I've got some articles here about the Ukraine war. Things are starting to fray a little bit, right? A really weird article, I think, that talks. It's Russian propaganda is making inroads with right-wing Canadians. So it's an article talking about Russian propaganda while itself also being propaganda. I'm really looking forward to actually this article. We'll get into it. But the true reality of what's going on in Europe is that, look, they rely on Russia, right? They rely on Russian oil. They rely on Russian resources. It's crazy. It's crazy that they went along with this. It's crazy that they've always gone along with this antagonizing of Russia. It's crazy to me that they've done that. Like, given the proximity, they should be looking at Russia and being like, oh, we could like do trade and like get resources and be buddies with these guys. It would be cheaper and easier for us to do it. We don't need to traverse an ocean. We don't need to deal with like trade routes around the African continent or any of this to get to China. Like, Russia's right fucking there. It's right there. The fact that they have engaged in this war with Russia, to me, is just absolutely bonkers. And it's completely backfired for them. It's completely backfired for them. And really, really shown that Europe itself, like, what's Europe actually providing? Like, what's Europe actually doing? Right? Like, what's it make? What's it manufacture? What's it create? What is it putting into the world? And when you actually observe Europe from that perspective, you realize pretty quickly, like, oh, these guys are just consuming. That's all they do. They're still benefiting from a neo-colonial empire, right? That is itself in a type of collapse. They're just extracting, right, from their colonies that still exist across Africa and Latin America, right? They're still benefiting in these ways, but all of those relations are starting to break down, right? And so who wants to invest any money in Europe? Who gives a shit about anything Europe is doing, right? Like, if you're not already being exploited by Europe, and if you're not already dealing with the momentum of neo-colonialism and all of that, well, you're not going to suddenly create a relationship with Europe because they offer nothing and they just take. That's it. And so all the euro can do is sink, right? While other nations that are actually building stuff, actually doing stuff, actually offering something, actually creating a reality that's worth living in, right? Or at least improving the reality somewhat to make sure that things are better. Well, you know, it doesn't take a genius to figure this out. And if everybody is running away from Europe and running away from the euro and eventually America, right, then the dollar goes with it and the euro goes with it. Like, nobody wants to use it because it's crazy. Are there other Canadian leftists you like to interview or make a video with? Are you familiar with Bothered Boy? Honestly, my number one would actually be Bothered Boy. The reason why I like that guy, and the reason I'm kind of connected to him existentially, is that we essentially started at the same time. He got a little bit of a head start on me, but we both basically started when the pandemic kind of hit. We both kind of got it. And he has always been in front of me. He's always had more followers. He's always been producing content. He seems a little bit better at making connections with other people. And I think his branding is really strong. Bothered Boy, like that's good branding. Like he's in a good spot. And I'd really like to. He'd be my number one guy to talk to. I think just because of that. Just because I really think like you're not supposed to compare yourself to other people and how they're doing in the world, right? You're supposed to always compare yourself to who you were yesterday. That's the way you do actual comparisons. But I can't help it when it comes to him because we both like we post to the same places. We're always involved in the same stuff, and he's always been that one step ahead of me. And I'm really rooting for him. Really, I'm really rooting for him. Like he seems like he's got a good head on his shoulders. He seems to tackle issues that I look at and like I'll look at an issue and go like, nah, I don't think I want to, and then he will, and I always appreciate that about him. We rarely step on each other. I think we have different interests in what we focus on. I think I'm more interested in the like the actual beating heart of the death cult and really what it's doing in the world in like a very scary and significant way. Like the climate change disaster that's coming, right? Like that's what I want to be talking about. Whereas he seems to be a lot more focused on the moment to moment of the day stuff, which is probably why he's growing a little bit faster than I am. Maybe it's something I should get a little bit better at. But anyway, something worth talking to him about. Trotskyist United Frontism would be a good theory to understand yet. Yeah, we're veering into open Christofascism for sure. That's coming, dude. Hey, Methane, how you doing? Pander to the lowest common denominator. That's the capitalist way. Absolutely. Oh ho, Zed coming out with fire. Zinn, Parenti, Chomsky, and Hedges have been holding us back. Let's unpack that, Zed. What makes you say that? What makes you say that? I don't necessarily disagree with you, by the way, but I'd like to know your kind of position on it before I talk about it. Anyone watching their Dutch farmer protests? Yeah, it looks like the same right-wing grift that happened here in the winter. Yeah, I mean it's always going to be that way, right? They're landowners. Like the thing that is notable though is like that they feel they need to do it, right? Like that's something that I keep pointing out to like leftist types. I'm just like I understand that, like, in terms of the theory and all of that, we're supposed to be, like, these people are, like, kind of our antagonists, that we're not supposed to be rooting for them. But at the same time, like, that's how badly the system is breaking down. That the very people who the system should be designed to protect, right? Like truckers and farmers are exactly the type of people that a system of capital should protect. Like there's just no rationale that says we should alienate the truckers, and we should alienate the farmers, and yet it is, right? And then it is like that's what's insane. Like no, everybody should be shocked that there is any kind of protest movement that's happening coming out of truckers and coming out of farmers. That's insane to think about, right? That's insane. These are the people who literally say, like, just get a job, get a better education, right? Buck up, just go get a loan, right? Those are the guys that say that. Their solution to everything is reinvest in the system, right? That's their solution to everything. Just take everything you have and reinvest it in the system and you'll be fine. And if you're failing, it's because you are not reinvesting into the system hard enough, right? And these guys are protesting against the system. Like, how can you tell it's failing, right? How can you tell it's failing? So I like, my heart is with them. I don't think that we are allies, but I understand what they're doing, and we can learn a lot from those movements. Like, they're going out and they're doing it, right? What have I been saying this whole time? Like, what am I trying to do here? Like, what are we doing here? right? We're trying to get into the streets. We're trying to have big protests. We're trying to literally, like, topple the thing. Well, here they are. Right? Like, and so when we talk, like, going back to before, we're talking about Red-Brown Alliance, right? Well, where's the leftists doing this? Where are they? Where are they? Right? They're not. Like, they're just not doing it. And so, like, you can see why it would be appealing for people who have that kind of revolutionary spirit to say, well, we should reach across and talk to these guys that are doing it and out on the streets and at the parliament and buying bill. Like, the trucker convoy movement literally bought a church in Ottawa to make their base of operations. Like, there's serious shit happening on the right. There's serious shit happening there. Like, and you're seeing stories, yeah, Freedom Convoy leader Pat King was granted bail. And again, like, these guys aren't my allies. Like, I'm not sitting here being like, rah, rah, I hope they overthrow the government and they win, right? But the idea that Pat King was jailed since February, right? He's still a Canadian citizen, goddammit. What law did he break? What law did he actually break? What is he out on bail for? Here, maybe they'll actually say it, right? 2-day bail, he was waiting months, released, but for what? What was he charged with even? Review the request, keep him in custody. Like, what was he even charged with? He was arrested. 4 charges: mischief, counseling to commit mischief, counseling to commit offense or disobeying a court, and counseling to obstruct police. Like, so, running a protest. Right? Like, that's what he's been charged with. Running a protest. Here are the charges: mischief, counseling to commit mischief, counseling to commit the offense of disobeying a court order, and counseling to obstruct police. So literally protesting, right? Which is his inalienable right. Agree with him or disagree with him. He's a Canadian citizen. He has the right to protest. He's an organizer of a protest movement, right? And he was in jail since February, right? And if they're going to do it to Pat King, they're going to do it to us, for sure. Like, for sure. And so, I don't push on this stuff because I'm sitting here being like, and what Pat King is doing is going to be good for Canada and all that kind of stuff. But he's doing the thing we should be doing. And we absolutely should learn from these guys and take the lessons that come from what they're doing. And find out what their pitfalls were, and find out what the benefits were, and find out what the strategies worked and what didn't. There are definitely things that are working, right? Like the fact that the Canadian government enacted the Emergencies Act because of men like this, right? It's working, what they're doing, right? Is the vision for Canada that comes afterward because of this stuff any good? No, obviously. But they're the ones getting into the streets. They're the ones doing it. Where's the left? So if you're, someone like myself, yeah, I could see how enticing it would be to be like, yeah, we should create a Red-Brown Alliance because these guys are actually getting into the streets and we're not. Right? And what happens on the left? You're actually trying to build a leftist coalition. You actually have leftists that are going out, right? And then there's all the dumb bickering and all the nonsense bullshit where you're shitting on people, right? Alienating the very people who are actually getting into the streets, going out and doing stuff from behind a fucking computer screen. So, like, we're on the back foot, man. Like, we're on the back foot in big, significant ways. And if the Dutch farm protesters, if Dutch farmers want to go and actually protest, more power to them. We should look at them and think, why can't we? If they can, why can't we? What's stopping us? What's preventing us from doing it? Right? Because it's inscrutable to me. Like, we can do it. I believe it. But we just seem not to care enough. Scratch a Russian and underneath you'll find the Tatars. Napoleon. Good old Napoleon. I just listened to a great podcast about Napoleon. Yeah, Cuba has more sovereignty than Europe. Yeah, I mean, it's amazing that Cuba's been permitted to survive the way it has. Like, I think about that a lot. Like, why hasn't America just blown them up? Like, I just watched a great video from the Gravel Institute. And the Gravel Institute's newest one Did I keep it? Did I keep it alive? No, I closed it. Here's a good one to show though. The Gravel Institute just did a video about the bombing of Laos, and how there's something like 30 million unexploded bombs in Laos. They were dropping for 9 years. They were dropping a bomb every 8 minutes on average. Like it's crazy, crazy. Watson, you're misreading it. What happened? You had 1.9. I had 1.09. Right, and now I'm at 1.1. You're misreading it. I was at 1.09, and now I'm at 1.1. So, I value and appreciate you, friend. Thanks for looking out for me, man. Hey, Compton, how you doing? I'm a messy bitch. John for life. Bothered boy is bothered. Yeah. I like his energy, too. I like what he does. Like, I like his stuff. Anytime I look at his stuff, I'm just like, yeah, bud, you're doing it. You're doing it. I think the difference between Bothered Boy and myself is kind of in the title, right? Like, he's a bothered boy. I'm a Canadian communist. I think one of the things that I'm trying to really accept and infuse more into what I'm doing here, in the hopes that this will actually work. Like, I find that a lot of the commentators that exist, and this isn't a critique of Bothered Boy, but I definitely see it in the title, right? Bothered Boy, right? There's a childishness, right? There's just a childishness. Like, everything is presented like, it's like, hey guys, you'll never believe it, haha, like, wacky bullshit, right? Like, it's not serious people sitting around talking seriously about serious things. We're not acting like adults when we're talking about these things. We're rising to the bait. We're allowing dumb insults to get to us, right? And like if like we keep falling into this sort of debate bros trap and all this kind of stuff, and I'm just like, no, like we need to start acting like fucking adults in this. And a big part of that to me, and I think the big difference between someone like Bothered Boy and myself is like he still has this kind of like exasperated, like I can't believe this is the case going about, whereas I don't. Like, these are the people who exist. These are the people who rule us. Like we can talk pretty openly and freely about it. And people who deny it, right? People who are denying, for example, climate change, right? The climate change denialists, we should treat as if they're children, because they fucking are. Right? Like we don't need to take them seriously. Like for me, the moment when I turned on Peterson 100%, when I switched from like, oh, he's kind of like my dumb uncle, to like, oh, this is an openly dangerous fascist person, was when he went on Joe Rogan and denied climate change or dismissed it. I was just like, oh, this is the end of him as a credible intellectual thinker. He is now just a scary child throwing a temper tantrum. And that should be the perspective and the view that we take and that we adopt. We don't need to act exasperately against these people. We don't need to be like, oh, I can't believe, or any of that shit, right? We state our case and defend our position, and they can squall against it like the children that they are. Communist groups question the government. The only other group doing this are conservatives right now. Okay, Zed, this is going back to Zinn, Parenti, Chomsky, Hedges holding us back. Okay, this is a good conversation, dude, because I don't necessarily disagree with you. They admit themselves they are not communists. Yes, that's true. Someone like Hedges, for example, he kind of considers himself more like oh my god, come on. Economist, 1930s, New Deal. You guys know who I'm talking about. Oh my god. A Keynesian. He considers himself like a Keynesian economist, right? Like he's got a theological backing, right? Like he comes from the Presbyterian churches. But he's not a communist, and they buy into the capitalist history. Thus, their entire perspective is skewed. I think that I don't know that they've bought into that idea. Like, I mean, they're the ones that are acknowledging like the history of slavery. Like someone like Zinn, for example, right? They don't question when they should. Basically, they think capitalism is when free market. Basically, yeah. Yeah, like I do think I see where you're coming from with this, Zed, where like they probably, like, a lot of them seem to think that capitalism just needs to be reformed, or that we can still do capitalism somehow, right? And to me, I think that the thing that's holding us back, why someone like Chomsky and Parenti and these guys are actually holding us back, Zinn and the like, is that they come with that old baggage, right? Like, they could never say that they are communists because they know what would happen to them, right? Like, someone like Richard Wolff has penetrated the discourse as a Marxist economist and has been successful in that way, but it's taken him like decades, and it's been like his entire life's journey has been that. Whereas like people like Chomsky and Hedges and all this, they're not willing or interested in that, right? Like, they know what would happen to them, and but now we're getting into a point where we need that. Like, that is what we need. We need a communist push. We need the communists and a communist organized group of communists and socialists. That's what we need. Exactly what we need. And so I look at guys like Chomsky and Hedges, and as much as I love them, and I do, I think that they're powerful voices, important voices. They have done a lot of good work, and you can never take that away from them. But now we're entering a new era, and we're entering a new period of time. And like, so these guys may very well be the guys who kind of brought you to the well, but they're not going to actually pull the water out to let you drink. That's up for us. We got to do that ourselves. And that's just the truth of it. So I think you're right, Zed. Like, I think you're right that like we've gone as far as we can with those people, you know, which isn't to say that we should dismiss them or disparage them, but just, they're human too. And they, like, someone like Chomsky, for God's sakes, he's going to die any day now. Like, Chomsky's like, he's where he is, you know, like, this is it. He's touching the golden door, looking back at us, being like, well, good luck. And so we got to move forward without them. Because this is as far as they're willing to go, or capable of going. Y'all following the Alex Tyrell Green Party expulsion story? I have not been. They didn't like his Ukrainian-Russian war anti-tar sands positions. He put in his appeal today. We should find out soon. Yeah, dude. Like, it's not going to happen, right? Like, there's no political party. There's no political party that exists in America that's going to, like, this article is making it really pretty straightforward that if you actually pay attention to any kind of anti-Western narrative, then it's just straight up Russian propaganda, right? Like, yeah, here. I'm going to catch up, and then we'll touch base on this one. They're protecting the truckers and farmers. Their farmers are, and their gargantuan shipping empires. It's just natural competition. It's all fair under capitalism, yeah. There's big money behind these right-wing protests. Yeah, I think that's true, too. Yeah, that's definitely true. Was Pat King's group the one with the MOU that called for the government to be overthrown and replaced with people who didn't appoint? The Convoy people are worse than the liberals. Yeah. Like, the reason why my heart kind of goes out to these Convoy people is that at least they're admitting something's wrong. Right? Like, to listen to these liberals, they're like, everything's great, sunny ways. Right? Like, I don't really have patience for that shit. Right? Like, at least the people who are going to these convoys and are sitting there being like, something's gone wrong. Like, what? This whole thing's not working. Their analysis is pretty stupid, though. Pretty straightforwardly. Like, they don't really have an analysis. If we protest, the cops come and crack our skulls. When the right protests, they get a pass by the cops and bouncy council. They get a pass by the cops and bouncy castles. Dude, I organize protests. I have never had my skull cracked. Although I will admit, I have seen people get arrested, for sure. Like, for sure it happens, right? And I mean, the cops cleared the bridge. So it is more complicated than this. Like, it's more complicated than this, and I worry that this narrative of like, well, when we protest, we get our heads cracked, right? That and that just being the narrative really chases people away from actually coming out to these protests. When my experience with it is like, most of the time, like, things, you show up, you do your protest, things go well. And could they devolve? Obviously, but like, I think we have to accept it. Like, we've got to accept that, like, there is going to be confrontations, and that because if we don't, then we just keep living this life, and it's just going to go that way. Cuba is allowed to exist so capital can point out and say, look, communism is when poor. Yeah, I mean, like, as long as you ignore the sanctions, right? It's poor because it's been made poor. Compton, story time. This weekend in a red state, I spent some time with my partners at a worker-owned co-op. Later, I went to pick up some shit at a big box store, and without prompting, the cashier said that all businesses should be unionized and owned by the workers. People are waking up. Well, a big shift, something that I think is happening, Compton, is that lots of people are beginning to recognize... First of all, most people recognize that unionization is legitimate, right? Like, people hear union, they don't immediately go communism, right? And then now it's starting to shift in another direction where, like, people are starting to recognize that when communists and socialists are talking about the shift that they want to see, they are saying, like, yeah, take this business and let the workers run it, right? And so, like, we had in here just the other day, one of our regulars was kind of questioning my position, very kindly, in my view, and he clearly had a misunderstanding of what this whole idea was. And so just, I think people are starting to get that, like, oh, like, yeah, shouldn't the workers own these places? Like, that seems completely legitimate. Like, oh, you're working here. Like, this is your livelihood. This is your job. Shouldn't you be the one responsible in some way for the decision makings and be the primary beneficiary of what happens? One would assume that would be the case, right? But, and once you turn that corner, it's real hard to go back, right? Like, once you understand, they're like, oh, wait a minute, yeah, like, the guy that owns this place doesn't work here. I never see him, right? He's just somewhere. There's like a whole investor class. Who are these people? I don't know who they are, right? Like, wait a minute, the workers should own the place. Yeah, it's pretty tough to turn that corner. Hey, Ben, climate deniers are children. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Like, we don't need to... we don't need to really take these... the only reason we should take climate change deniers seriously is by how dangerous they are, right? Like, if at this stage in the game, if you're a climate change denier, you're worse than the Nazis. Like, even the Nazis weren't trying to destroy themselves, their own children, and their country, right? That they had a vision for the glory of Germany and all that, right? They were trying to at least enact a vision they thought was going to be good for Germany. Climate change deniers are literally saying, man, I can't wait until my children die in an apocalypse. I can't wait until there's no arable land or drinkable water. I can't wait until my own children curse my name and believe that I'm one of the worst people to ever walk the plane of reality. Like, that is their position. Like, it's shocking. It's shocking that they maintain it. And the only reason they do maintain it is for profoundly unserious reasons, right? Things like they're being paid off, right? That's classic, right? Just straight up just being paid to say it. Or they're just stupid, right? So it's just childish bullshit. Like, we should stop giving it. If a person stands up and does climate change dismissalism or denialism, we should treat them as a child. Like, literally talk to them like this. No, climate change is real. Every single scientist that's looked at... No, excuse me. The adults are talking. Like, this is how we should talk to these people. Like, they're children, and they need to be addressed as such. And if they're like, this is disrespectful, I'll be like, yeah, your position of murdering the species is very disrespectful, young man. Like, let the adults talk, okay? Hedges calls himself a Christian anarchist. Yeah, that seems to be accurate to his position, yeah. Honestly, though, Chomsky claims to be an anarchist. He seems like more like a radical liberal, yeah. Here's the basic problem holding back communists. Nothing changes until the definitions, the dictionaries are changed. I messaged Zinn. He's a bitch. Man, it's been a long time. Zinn's gone, though, right? Like, Zinn's not around. And Howard Zinn was always just a historian. Like, he was never, like, a social anarchist or any of that kind of stuff. Like, I think it's important for us to just allow these people to be as they are, right? And so someone like Howard Zinn is, like, the people's history of America, right? He's writing about a counter capitalist narrative, like a counter sort of the glorification of America, right? And talking about slavery and the genocide of the First Nations people and these sorts of things, right? But like, he never professed to be like a revolutionary, right? This is, I think, what you're striking at, Zed, which is that like, you want these people to be revolutionaries and they're not. That's really what it comes down to. And my suggestion is to say, don't hold them to that. They never professed to be that. They've always been operating from a position of academia, of attempting to inform people, of attempting to stand in the truth, attempting to talk about what's going on, but they've never professed to be revolutionaries. And that's the breaking point. But I don't think we should disrespect or disregard them for it, right? Because they never had to be revolutionaries, right? They never had to be revolutionaries. We do. The reason Wolf gets where he does is because he's evolutionary socialist like Bernstein and not revolutionary socialist. Yeah, same kind of story. Like, I think that, like, I think that Wolf, like, he's been operating in the academic world for so long, and he doesn't want to lose that position by starting to espouse some kind of revolutionary narrative, right? Whereas that's what we need to be doing. So, I'll say this about Chomsky. If you email him, he will answer. Oh, that's good to know. If we protest together with the right-wing groups, how will the cops act then? It'd be great if we get treated somewhere nice between cracked skulls and bouncy castles. Yeah. Well, I mean, like, my experience with protesting is that the cops don't want to come in and crack your skulls. Like, they really don't. Like, their position seems to be like, just maintain public order until this blows over, and it will blow over, right? And like, you only really start cracking skulls as a cop if the protest gets big enough, right? And like, sustained enough, right? Because that's something you start doing to break something up, right? When their hope is that it'll just disperse peaceably. Like, they don't want to go in there. Like, that's what a pain in the ass for them. Convoy people only care about anti-vax, anti-mask nonsense. Yeah, there's a bit of that. Well, I shouldn't say a bit of that. Like, it's central. They aren't pointing out any problems to the liberals or society at all. They're just selfish numbskulls. I mean, yeah. But, like, look how far it's got them. Right? Look how far just being a selfish numbskull can get you. Right? Like, I don't hold it against them. Really. Hey, Strifey, how you doing, bud? Good to see you, bud. That's incorrect. I've emailed Gnome several times, received no replies. I was polite. Oh, yeah. I never emailed him. I know people who have. You might get a one-word or one-sentence answer. He has replied. Okay, interesting. A bunch of these Convoy guys, small business owners, are anarcho-socialists, but believe they're capitalists. They own their own means of production, therefore socialist. They preach personal responsibility, aka anarchy. Yeah, Ben, I think you're hitting on it a little bit more. Like, they don't have a Like, this is the real truth of it, is that they don't have an analysis. Like, that's what, like, I think Adams state they're just selfish numbskulls is kind of the bottom line on it. It's just the difference is that I don't hold it against them. Like, I look at them and I go, like, yeah, okay. Like, they don't have an analysis of what's going on. All they know is things are tough, and I don't like it. And these guys are saying we should go make a fuss about it. You know what? I'm gonna. Because things are tough and I don't like it. And that's it. Like, that's it. That's the long and short of it. And it really just does show you that, like, action matters. Right? You don't need this, like, big theological theoretical backing. You don't need, I mean, you should have a theoretical backing, obviously, but, like, if all you're doing is making a book club, if all you're doing is talking about things on the internet, right? As we sit here talking about things on the internet, but if that's all you're doing, well, then the guys that actually go and do stuff are going to blow you out of the water. And they're going to blow you out of the water simply by going and doing stuff, even though they're fucking selfish numbskulls. Like, it's fascinating. Did you see that CBC article I posted on Discord talks about PEI doctors? I did not, dude. I did not. Articles. Is it that one? Let's bring it up for you. Another PEI doctor leaves practice in patients. Health PEI is more aware of more physicians who have discussed reducing or leaving their practices. Yeah, this is becoming common, right? Like, we're destroying this. We're destroying the system. And if you destroy the system, the people don't want to be part of it. And it's all in an effort to privatize the whole thing. Like, that's the whole shtick, right? I really like talking to you guys. You guys are great. Conservatives hate Howard Zinn. Yeah, of course. Yeah, they're the low end of the petty bourgeoisie, the small business owners full of idealism of capitalism and fearful of being re-proletariatized. How's that for a word? They are the sharp end of the spear of fascism. Yeah, that wouldn't be a terrible way of looking at it. These older folks come from a time when communists were persecuted and imprisoned. I don't blame their position. Yeah, Isaac, that's more or less where I look at it too, right? Like, it's like, if you stand up and say you're a communist, you could literally just get picked up, you know? Like, I understand why people would not be wanting to, like, stand up and be like, communism is the way forward. Please come and arrest me and pick me up and send me to a black site. You know? Like, that's something that I think we have to always understand with these guys. Like, there is, like, just a reality of living in the society that they live in. Like, they simply can't afford it. You know? Like, you think about something like Chomsky. Like, here's a guy that works at MIT and, like, is considered, like, a high-level intellectual, you know? Like, he's not going to start risking that, you know? I've never actually been to a protest. Watching U.S. protests kind of scare me off. Yeah, I've seen U.S. cops pulling the arms off a person in a wheelchair. Yeah, behind their backs. Yeah, man. Like, if it gets real, it gets real. Like, that is the truth. Like, it's hard to deny. My experience with protests here in Canada is it hasn't gotten to that point yet. Although the G20 protests were pretty bad. Like, the G20 protests, there was a lot of, like, kettling. There was a lot of, there were, like, mass arrests. Cops, like, riding into crowds on horses, things like that. Aaron, I'd say treat climate deniers with compassion and understanding. I was taught as a child in the 90s that if I reduced how long I washed my hands, didn't use hairspray, we'd save the fishes. It's the cult of personality, personal accountability, and hierarchy. They believe they themselves are personally not the problem. So if you have a problem, it's your own fault. They are workers. Deprogramming them is competing with centuries of concentrated indoctrination. I mean, I think that this narrative makes sense 10 years ago, dude. I think we're past this now. Like, it's in. Like, the facts are on the table, right? Like, the Gen Z crowd are starting to get into voting age now, and they're not acting this way. Like, they're not looking and being like nice about it. They're not saying to climate change deniers and this sort of stuff like, oh, well, we need to, their workers, they're programming them, they're competing, all this kind of stuff. These guys are sitting here being like, you guys have been talking about this for 20 years, since I was like a little baby, right? Like if a kid is born in like 2001, like we've been talking about this for fucking 20 years. And if they talk to a 40-year-old and that 40-year-old is still walking around being like, climate change, not a big deal, they have every right to shit on them, and they should. They absolutely should. Like, we're getting to a point now where even the kids know. Like, even the kids know. Like, I definitely agree with your position like 10 years ago. Right? But, no. It's over. Like, it's over. And it shouldn't be considered a respectable position. It should be considered something that a Nazi would say. And we should treat it as such. Like literally, like with like a furled up face, like as if they have a knife and have the intention to use it. Because like, I think it's grotesque what we're seeing, and we should consider it despicable at this point. Like, I understand that there's like people who used to be climate change deniers who kind of came around on it, but we just don't have the time for this anymore. Like, it's over. Like, there's fucking a heat wave coming into the UK that's going to kill thousands of people. Like, this is real. This is happening. Like, the hand-holding is over, dude. Like, the hand-holding is over. Like, we were holding hands for a long time. We've been holding hands for a long, long time. And the people who went through the hand-holding phase and are still on the other side as climate change deniers are worse than Nazis and should be regarded as such. And this is just starting, dude. This is just starting. Like, this is getting nothing but worse. Nothing but worse. Year over year over year over year. And wait for the year where there's a big spike up. Wait for the year where this number is 50 degrees. Wait for the year when there's something desperately serious happening. Are you still going to be saying, well, we should be treating them with compassion and understanding? No, I'm not. Like, literally looking at people boiling to death in the streets, being like, nah, climate change isn't real. Like, I'm over it, dude. Like, I'm over it. Like, and I want to be real clear about one thing, Aaron. I respect where you're coming from. I really do. Like, but it's, to me, that's an old narrative that we have to kill. It has to die. We don't have an alternative. Like, I wish that your way worked. It doesn't. It's over. We tried it. We've been trying it for 30, 40 years now. Right? It's over. It's done. It's finished. The apocalypse is upon us. There are heat waves coming that are killing thousands of people. There are wildfires already here that are wiping out infrastructure in towns, right? There is flooding coming that is already killing tens of thousands of livestock. We've already experienced mass flooding. We're already experiencing this, and there are still people walking around pretending as though it's not happening. It's over, dude. Like, it's over. These people need to be regarded as the Nazis they are, because that's exactly what they're doing, right? That's exactly who they are, and they need to be considered terrifying children who should be put in a corner and disregarded. And anybody who actually even takes them seriously should join them. Like, we're facing an apocalypse, a true, honest-to-God apocalypse. I know it sucks. I know it's tough. I know most people don't want to do it, but we have no alternative. They're not responding to being nice. It's over. It's done. It's finished. Time to treat them like children. Terrifying, scary, psychopathic children, because that's exactly what they are. CR Strifey, 49% of Canadians don't have the booster. Why? If 2 are good, why isn't 3 great? We'll see if they don't have a point when the 3rd dose is made mandatory in the fall, then the 4th and the 5th. I'd be very surprised to see the government push forward on a mandatory thing, CR Strifey. I think the mandatory nature of the vaccines is really what kicked up a lot of fuss for people. And there's been a lot across the entire globe There's been a lot of pushback against the mandatory stuff. And I just don't see it coming. Like, I think that they've given up the ghost on the mandatory nature of the vaccines and things like this. Because, like, they know that if they keep pushing on it, it gets worse for them. That the populace isn't just going to bow its head and go along with it. And, like, the mandatory nature of the first couple of vaccines, people were kind of willing to go along with because there was kind of a spirit of fear and anxiety. But that spirit of fear and anxiety is gone now. People are no longer afraid of COVID-19. Like, people want to live their lives, right? They want to go out there. And if you're going to be like, hey, did you get the vaccine? And somebody will be like, yeah, sure. Right? Or, yeah, nah. Right? It just looks like the pressure valve has been released on the public. And sure, there are people who are still planting their flags and making a big fuss about it and all that kind of stuff. But I think the populace generally itself has moved on. Like, it has moved on. And sort of regards that conversation as something they'd rather not involve themselves in anymore. Small business owners were how Hitler came to power, yeah. I mean, they're definitely a part of it. I would argue that it was the larger industrialists that were to blame. But yeah, like, it's not an inaccurate thing to say. As far as I'm aware, a card-carrying communist can still be detained without cause in Canada. I mean, we generally don't here in Canada. I know that when Tim Buck was detained, right? Tim Buck and a group of communists back in like the 30s were picked up, and it was considered quite a big deal. Wait, I could go to black sites for being communist? Yeah. Yeah, dude. The history of communism is riddled with this shit. Right? Like, it's not safe being a communist in America. Like, it's like that's the hard reality. Like, a big reason, like, the McCarthy period alone, dude. Like, the McCarthy period alone should convince you of that. Right? Like, imagine a United States senator bringing people to, like, a kind of kangaroo court style jury and expecting them to name names so that they could blacklist them. Like, it's a serious thing. And has done major damage to North America. Conservatives do not care if climate change is real or not. If I have a conservative said to me that everything is in God's hand, yeah, those who promote climate change are anti-Americans, yeah. Right? Like, it's over. Like, these people's minds cannot be changed. Like, and why? Like, why can't their minds be changed? Because of this childish bullshit. Because they're espousing childish nonsense. Like, how do we have compassion for this? How can we? We can't afford it. It's been a decade since I knew actual party members, but yeah, there's criminal code that lays out what they can do. Oh, that's fun. Hey, Oddity, how you doing? I agree with your position as well for the general populace. I'm talking in my experience with one-on-one conversations. If you find that they're convincible, then that's not what we're talking about, Aaron. Like, that's not what we're talking about. Like, if you sit somebody down and they're like, I don't know much about this climate change thing, you know, it seems to be a kind of a... And you're like, well, this is what's going on, and these are facts, and this is what's happening, and so on and so forth. And then they go, oh, well, that's quite serious. I feel as though we should do something about that. Right? That's not what we're talking about. Right? We're talking about the people who are like, climate change isn't real because God wouldn't do that to a God-fearing people. Right? Climate change is a Chinese hoax made by the Chinese in order to... Like, we're talking about... And more specifically, right, to really dig into it, we're talking about, like, the frauds who are actually paid in order to lie. Right, so you're looking at like PragerU, you're looking at Peterson, you're looking at ExxonMobil executives, right, and the frauds that they pay off. You're looking at these kinds of people, right? Like, if you talk to somebody and like you find that they can be convinced, and like that's not what we're talking about, right? Half of the Conservative Party still thinks climate change is fake, right? Do you think they can be convinced? I don't. I strongly do not. Like, I really do think That, like, if it wouldn't matter if you sat him down, if you showed him all the charts, if you did all that kind of stuff. Like, we're really in, like, the moon landing is faked territory with these guys. Like, we're really in, like, high-minded conspiracy mode. And we just, like, I don't know what we should do about it. Maybe if leads go up in flames, people will understand. Yeah, my absolute favorite are the people who are like, natural disasters have been happening since the beginning of time. This is just another natural disaster. Forget about the fact that, like, natural disasters have been increasing over time. Yeah, work to address their problems. Farmers are losing their crops while denying climate change. When you're like, you know where all your water went? Corporations. Offer solutions. Yeah, again, Aaron, like, that's a nice theory. Like, that's a nice idea, right? That we've been doing for a long time. But it's time to admit that there are people in the conversation who are acting in bad faith or from a position of delusional. That cannot be convinced, that will never be convinced, that can't be convinced, that literally they will allow the entire place to burn down while saying it's not happening. Like, I am willing to acknowledge your position, but I think it's time that you start acknowledging mine. Hey, Not Milk, how you doing, bud? Do you see a change in NATO in the future? Like, how do you mean, dude? Like, a change in NATO? Like, NATO is always in a kind of a flux. People are joining it and all that kind of stuff. Like, the big change that could happen would be if Donald Trump is elected and then makes good on him withdrawing from NATO. That would be the big change. Like, but no, NATO is as NATO is, and it's going to stay that way because it's useful. It's useful for the white power structure to keep an alliance of the white nations in order to dominate the rest of the globe. Right? They're going to keep it up. More than 400 people have died in Spain and Italy, and being told not to turn their air conditioning on. Yeah, right? Like, wonka, wonk, 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 right? The populace will demand vax mandates as ERs continue to close. Yeah, I mean, more specifically, will the same countries that are a part of it want to remain? Yeah, people are terrified, dude. Like, people are terrified. Like, nobody is interested in bailing on this NATO alliance. If anything, they want to strengthen it. Like, that's really what it is. Yeah, they really should be still afraid of this virus. Yeah, I mean, everybody. Yeah, people want to live their lives, man. Like, it's really what it comes down to. Like, people want to go to the beach. People want to go to a club. People want to do this stuff. Like, they don't want to just hunker down and like many of the, and I've had more than one conversation of just like, yeah, just kill me then. Like, if that's what you're suggesting, then I might as well just not be here. Like, it's getting to that scale and people just aren't tolerating it. The Quicker is the same people who say that Book of Revelations is real. Yeah, it talks about climate change in it. Yeah, where God blowing up the sun. Yeah, so climate change is good because Jesus Christ is coming back. Jesus Christ is coming back, right? And so everything's great. And then all the Christians get to go to heaven and all those dirty Muslims go to hell. Every war in the U.S. is engaged in through Latin America, Asia, Africa has been against people that espouses communist ideologies. Yeah. Well, I mean, for God's sakes, like the Vietnam War and the bombing of Laos, like through Kissinger's secret war and all that kind of stuff, like it was explicitly stated that they were doing that to staunch the spread of communism. Like the Americans will literally blow up entire countries if the people within it go, I think that we should all care about each other. Like, if the people within a country say, I think that the resources we have we should use for the betterment of ourselves and try to improve our lot in the world. Everyone should have food and shelter. They dropped more bombs on Laos than they did in World War II. Yeah. Like, really think about that. America dropped more bombs on Laos than they did in World War II. We gotta stop the Stalin's communism. Communism's a real problem. These agrarian people in rice fields talking about building a road. That's the real problem in the world. God bless America. This manifest destiny. We're the greatest country in the world. Liberal democracy is going to spread and then there'll be peace in our time. Literally a bomb every 9 minutes for 9 years. Like a bomb going off in your country every 9 minutes for 9 years. Get fucked. I think the Christo-fascist group, the Cornwall Alliance, is the one that calls environmentalism the green Satan and thinks the free market is divinely inspired. Yeah, here we go. Now we're talking about the real people, right? Now we're talking about the people who just will not be convinced. Like the terrifying children of the apocalypse. Yeah, yet no matter how much you demonstrate how the capitalist is destroying the planet, they cannot accept the fact they are presented to them. Yeah, I believe conservatives can be convinced. I live in extremely conservative Utah. There's no groundwork done here. The Democratic Party is paid off too. We haven't been addressing them. Mate, if you think you can do it, then you do it. Right? Like, I am nowhere near as hopeful as you are. Like, not even remotely close. Like, I am to the place where I'm saying that we should be rounding up the people who are climate change deniers and arresting them. Like, that's where I'm at. Like, if you're going to go on, like, Joe Rogan's podcast and do climate change dismissalism, I think you should be arrested. As a traitor. Like, pretty black and white. Like, if you think that you can change the mind of some guy in Utah that doesn't know a thing, then great. Like, I'm all for this, right? But you know what would really help? If that guy wasn't listening to Joe Rogan's podcast and hearing climate change denialism every day, right? That'd be really helpful, right? It'd be really helpful if the people who had the largest platforms weren't being paid off in order to actually spread this bullshit into the society, right? Or at least dismiss it the way that they do. Like, if you're going to stand up in front of 11 million people and say that climate change isn't real, I just think you should be in prison. Like, you're a dangerous person. You're dangerous to yourself. You're dangerous to the society. You're dangerous to the country. You're dangerous to your own children. You're a danger, right? Like, there's a sharp difference between somebody being like, I don't know anything about this climate change, I don't know, and somebody who's literally going on major platforms, creating content, creating videos, creating propaganda, right? Creating Nazi-scale propaganda in order to deceive those people into continuing this grift, right? Like, it's just a sharp difference. Keep in mind that cognitive dissonance is a powerful force, that no matter what facts you bring to them, a person will not change a person's beliefs, yeah? I'm sure the next new snake oil tech will solve the problem this time, yeah? Build more! Yeah, we just need more carbon capture. We just need a new something for people to buy. What if people buy things, then that's it, right? Just the solution is always buy something, right? It's always just buy something. It's never stop doing something. It's never actually do something important, right? Like, it's never actually like change your lifestyle. It's always just buy something. Yep. Just buy these fancy carbon nanotube Gucci bricks. We'll plant a tree. Yeah, exactly. I'm so glad you guys are all here, dude. I'm so glad you guys are all here. No matter... Yep. Yet no matter how you demonstrate how the capitalist is destroying the planet, they cannot accept the facts that are presented to them. Yeah, I believe conservatives can be convinced. Oh, wait, I went way too far back. Talk to a libertarian. Libertarians are the absolute worst, dude. Like, libertarians are actually the guys that are doubling down on it. Like, they're the guys that, like, are being shown how their belief system leads to outright overt slavery and destruction and going, that's fine. right? Like, if you didn't want to be destroyed, then you should have fought better. Like, straight up. Like, this is the libertarian ethos. Like, I don't really, like, if you're a libertarian in America, I'm basically just like, oh, you can stay away from me then. Like, I don't gonna trust you with anything in my life. Like, libertarians have a very, like, oh, I can betray you for a penny? Absolutely. Kind of attitude. Yeah, when you trigger their cognitive dissonance, you lose them. That's true. That's what we've been doing. We, the United States and red states, have not actually done anything at all to seriously convince them. I mean, hey, Box, how you doing, bud? How do you spell bothered? Bothered, right? Bothered. That's all. You had it right the first time. It's just bothered. Bothered. And they still discovered bombs that, yeah, exactly. Is it Boop Boy? No, bothered. Bothered. Like, that bothers me. I've been bothered. B-O-T-H-E-R-E-D. Bothered. Yeah, I'm okay with Candace Owens going to prison, yeah. I'm not hopeful at all, yeah. This is awful, yeah. We can agree on that, Aaron, for sure. And again, really, Aaron, I want to reassert something here, because I always like to do this with people who I get into kind of a tiff with. I really do respect your position. Like, it's hard watching regular people around you fall for it. Like, it's tough, especially if it's like family. Yeah, they just watch Fox News all day, right? Yeah, we're this fucked, and after all this time, there's no organizing. Well, I mean, a lot of the organizing that happened, like, I think about this a lot, right? Because we shit on the boomers a lot, right? But Gen Z and the younger generations are going to shit on millennials too, right? And they're not wrong, right? I think the difference between the boomers and the millennials is that the boomers were convinced that nothing was happening, whereas the millennials were convinced something is going to change. Like, if you want to take a look at, like, the moment that I think defines the millennial generation and the millennial experience, it is the Obama presidency. Hope and change, right? That the boomers were suckered by their position of wealth and power and prestige, right? That's what allowed them to get swindled. But what lets the millennials get swindled is that we pushed for so long to get even the issue acknowledged, that when it was finally acknowledged, we mistook that acknowledgement for a desire to change. That's really what it is. And to me, that's what the millennials can be judged for. That maybe the boomers were clueless, right? Well, they were the first people to experience, like, full-scale television and film propaganda, so it's somewhat understandable from my perspective. But the millennials were deceived simply through acknowledgement. That we put all of this energy in just to get the power structure to say it was real. And we mistook that acknowledgement for a desire to actually change. That's what really happened. And to me, so the next push is to look at what Gen Z is saying to us and what they will say to us, and not get defensive the way that the boomers did. That's the lesson. That the relationship between the boomers and the millennials has never improved. Not really. It's always been a big divide. And I think at this point it's not going to get better. I think literally the boomers are just going to die off. Right? But we have to look at the Gen Z crowd who are going to be scathing to the millennials. And I've seen it already. It's already beginning. And they're going to be scathing to us. And instead of doing what the boomers did to us, I think that we would be better off listening and then grabbing a hold of the energy that they're going to bring to the conversation, because they will, and running with it, and attempting to ally with them. And if that means swallowing our pride and sort of subserviating ourselves to their energy, I think we should. Because we did the job of getting it acknowledged in the first place, but now it's time to do the job of going all the way. And Gen Z is going to be the crowd that gets it really done, in my view. I see lots of millennials that are just lying down. Like, I see it all over the place. That you can say all of this shit to millennials, and a lot of millennials are just like, okay, well, how much longer am I alive on the planet? I got a pretty decent job. Maybe I've got a house. I'm just going to ride this out. Yeah, climate change, the apocalypse, all that kind of stuff. I'm just going to ride it out. I see that a lot. There's a lot of what has been described as apathy, but I don't see it as apathy. I do see it as just like, people can be exhausted, right? There's only so much energy. People can get exhausted. And it takes a lot of emotional and spiritual energy to maintain all of this shit. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of effort. And most people, that effort gets eaten up by capital, by design, on purpose, right? Work your full-time job, get your house, get your car, get all that kind of stuff, right? Like, do all of the things to maintain yourself and all that kind of stuff. Oh, and then also go into a big protest movement? Nah, right? So it's not that there has not been organizing. There has been organizing. It just gets diffused into the power structure. Like, the Liberal Party did a very good job of co-opting a lot of those movements and funneling a lot of the energy into dead ends. Like, the Liberal Party is a very effective party at this. Like the Democrats have been. I would argue that the Liberal Party here in Canada is even more effective at that. That, like, you go to climate change protests and there are people handing out, like kids, handing out pamphlets and stickers and things that are essentially liberal propaganda. Like when the carbon tax came in, right? There was like tons of these groups were like, yeah, carbon tax, this is actually going to do the thing. Like, the liberals are really, really good at tricking people and deceiving them into believing that they're doing something when they're not. And so I'm sympathetic to the plight of the millennials, like I'm sympathetic to the plight of the boomers. We were deceived. We have been deceived, right? That the power structure never intended to actually resolve the issue, right? Their intention was to pretend to look like they were going to resolve the issue. And they did it. They were very effective at it. It was very well done. We should acknowledge that I view it as a terrifying propaganda victory, right? That we convinced the very people who were actually taking to the streets in protest that something was going to happen. Like, that's a very effective propaganda victory. I'm a bit more scared of people who believe in global warming and don't care. I mean, yeah, there is like a general sort of sense of, what are you going to do about it? You know? As if there isn't a bunch of stuff that we can do about it. And I see a lot of like millennial types who actually hear what these liberals are saying now with like the carbon capture technology and the EVs and all this kind of stuff. And they actually think it's going to work. I'm like, nah, bud. Like, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, I ain't going to get fooled again, right? Oh, no, absolutely, libertarians are exactly as you've been describing. They know the facts. Yeah, they willfully deny them, yeah. It's scary how good your impression of JP is. Thanks, bud. I appreciate that. That's high praise. Peterson's dad sounds like a geriatric Kermit the Frog. It's perfect. Yeah, Peterson, you just need to get a little higher in the way you talk. You get a little. It's kind of like Kermit the Frog, but Kermit the Frog is more here, though. Yeah, Kermit the Frog here. Oh, today's letter is the letter Q, right? Ah, Peterson! We'll see who cancels who. Yeah, I've been working on Peterson for a while, though. I like impersonating people. I gotta tell you, I like doing it. It's something that it's not something that I like. There are people who are experts. There's a guy that I follow on YouTube by the name of Frank. I can't remember his last name, but Frank something or other, and he really came to prominence because of his George W. Bush impression back in the day. But he's great. Like he can physicalize it. He like really embraces it and like really does a lot of stuff. He's a real professional. And I watch his TikToks and I'm like, how do I try to pick stuff up from him because he's so good at it. But I still love doing impressions. I've always done impressions my whole life. And Peterson's just like fodder for it, man. Like Peterson's fodder for it. Like he's got such a distinctive voice. And if you tried to physicalize him too, like you'd start, in my view, you'd start with the eyes and you'd really squint him down, right? And he's got this kind of like, sort of puts himself in a position like this. What do you mean? What do you mean exactly? Feelings, right? And as he's getting older, he's getting angrier too. He's getting angrier for sure. Anyway. Yeah, Barnabas is hitting something here too. This is absolutely something that happens. Waiting for my parents' wealth to be willed down to me. I think that there is a whole ton of millennials that are basically just like, well, my parents have money. I'm going to get that money. Do. Mana. I think Gen Z adulthood is going to look like a Mad Max movie. Dude, the culture that Gen Z ushers in is going to be indescribable on purpose, by design. I think that what I'm seeing coming out of Gen Z is going to be a Dadaism. That the general opinion, the zeitgeist of Gen Z is that this culture is irredeemable and therefore should be washed away. That anything that was happening previously should only move forward as the butt of a joke. I really think that we're going into a Dadaist period. For those of you who don't know, Dadaism was a movement that existed throughout Europe in post-World War I. And its seminal statement really was, any society that ushers in World War I is a society that should be washed away and cleansed. And so they would do things like, if you're familiar with Monty Python and the Monty Python cartoons, especially, the Monty Python cartoons are Dadaist in their expression. Absurdism for the sake of absurdism, right? And absurdism is, and just taking like the Queen of England and putting her on a penguin and then having the penguin fly to the moon and while she's screaming and dollar bills are coming out of her nose, right? Like, and anything you can do to take people and institutions that were previously thought as sacred and then changing them into absurd in order to take the piss out of them, basically, right? Like, and I see it in the Gen Z kids, that you take a look at their memes and their culture and the stuff that's coming out, and it's very much absurdist expressionism. And I see a lot of millennial types looking at Gen Z memes and stuff and being like, I don't get it. And I'm like, yeah, I get it. Like, I get it. It's I'm not happy about it, but I get it. KKK cops always, every single time, start the violence. Antifa knows the signals, and most when the head cracking will start. Part of why they're hated is they warn and keep protesters safe. Yeah. Never had a chance to work to save, let alone keeping a job. And now just to get PWD, I'm going to take another fucking year. Yeah, dude. I was never given a chance to go anywhere ever. Oh, man. Yeah. That's like the true millennial narrative right there, man. Like, we start with this huge, like, believe in yourself, you can do anything. Like, it's like that, hey, now you're a rock star, get your game on, go play, right? Everybody's like sent into the world with this like high energy of like, you can do it. We believe in you. Follow your dreams. And it's just a total farce. Like, it's just a total farce. It's just a grift within a grift. And even if you're successful, like this is the thing that about the millennial experience that I think people don't really talk about. Because a lot is done about like, oh, you didn't succeed and you're just grumpy about it. And I'm sitting here being like, dude, like I have seen people who have succeeded. A lot of them are pretty mad about it. Like a lot of them are getting to be my age and being like, oh, this was it? Like this was what we were all talking about? Like this was the thing? What? You know? I'm seeing that Tate guy a lot more and more. And Andrew Tate, you bet. Yeah, dude. He is the expression of, you know, it's like the Empire Strikes Back, but it's like the dude strikes back. That's all. Like, Andrew Tate is just like a dude saying things that dudes used to say. But he's like saying it as crisply as it can be said, with as much authority and conviction as it can be said. But he's just like the classic misogynist chauvinist, right? Like he's got like he views women as people who should be subservient to men, even though he would deny that that's his position. But like it's fairly obvious. Like if a man goes and has sex with a bunch of women, that's fine. But if a woman does the same thing and goes and has sex with a bunch of men, she diminishes in value, right? And he tends to use the word value a lot when he talks about women, right? Which kind of indicates that he views them as property, right? Like, Tate is what you get when you just get like a rich dude who's sick and tired of being henpecked. And I think that there is a lot of men in the society who feel henpecked. You take a look at someone like Peterson, right? Like Peterson, I feel, exists in the space because we had like a feminist, like girl power, we should listen to minority groups and all this kind of stuff. But there are just a lot of men in the society who feel henpecked and who are tired of it and who feel as though when they stand up, they get shouted down, right? Oh, sorry guys, my dog got in the garbage. Milo, get out of there, dude. What are you doing? What are you doing? Get out of the garbage, dude. Oh, is it just this? Is this all you want? What are you? You can have that. All right. Yeah. And so, like, I don't agree with Andrew Tate on a lot of stuff. I think that his worldview exists. And what's interesting about Andrew Tate is that how all of his sort of misogynistic and chauvinistic positions seem to go away the moment he's talking to a wealthy woman, right? Because he respects, above all, class, right? That if you're in the same class as he is, then the rules seem to change. But he's just like the classic, he's like another iteration of Archie Bunker, right? That's it. And he's just like saying what a bunch of chauvinists, or not even chauvinists, but just like what a bunch of henpecked men are thinking. Like, there are lots of men who feel like they're trying to exist in the space and trying to get laid and trying to find women and all this, and they feel like they're being ignored and they feel like they're not being listened to. And so here comes this guy, Andrew Tate, who expresses something true about what they feel in their heart. And even though it's not accurate in my view, I think it's emotionally true. That's really the truth, I think, about Andrew Tate, is that you can talk about like the theory of it and go back and forth on like the actual points, but I don't think you can deny the emotional truth that he's bringing to the table. There are a lot of pissed off men in the world, right? There's a lot of pissed off men in the world. And I think it's fair to address that. Like, if you go through like a period of like a feminist period with like identity politics, and now like there's the whole trans situation that's happening, right? Homosexuality changing, all this. It's understandable that there's going to be people who feel left behind. Things are changing very quickly. And if you're just a person who's trying to work their job and exist in the world, right? And then one day you like go out and suddenly if you say a word, you're a bigot. You're like, but I've been saying this word my whole life and everybody around me has said this word. Suddenly I'm a bigot for saying this word. People are going to push back. And that's Andrew Tate. I find Andrew Tate to be mainly fascinating. And I expect to see more of him. I expect to see more, not of him specifically, but more of people like him. Like, you're going to find an Andrew Tate comedian. You're going to find an Andrew Tate style, like an Andrew Tate style guru, like a self-help thing, right? Like I'm here to help men be men, right? Like that kind of stuff is going to become more common as people backlash against the political correct movement. Screw Q. Yeah, dude. QAnon? Is that what you're talking about? Yeah. The impression that you'll get your head cracked at a protest is intentional propaganda. Yep. We protect us. Yeah. I'd start with the hands. He always seems to be fidgeting with his hands. Oh, yeah, that's true. He is a bit of a hand talker, isn't he? My financial retirement plan? My financial retirement plan is the revolution. I've not talked to enough based Gen Z yet. Well, part of the issue about Gen Z is that they're too young and they lack the language to articulate what's done and they don't really have anybody to turn to. They don't, like, unlike the right and unlike these frustrated incel male types, right, who have, like, Andrew Tate and who have Jordan Peterson, like, who do you have to turn to if you're Gen Z to get your language, right? To get a better understanding of the world. Well, you've got your Chomskys and your Hedges and your Cornel Wests and Bernie Sanders, right? Like these sort of types, right? Like who else though? Russell Brand, right? People like Hassan, right? Like you don't really have that many like really good or interesting role models to draw from. So they'll get there. They'll get there. One of them, someone will come out of Gen Z. There will be like an iconic figure of Gen Z. And we'll all look at him or her or them and say, I do not understand you. Which is why I very much am cautioning, like, we can't let what happened between the boomers and the millennials happen between the millennials and Gen Z. Whatever Gen Z is doing, we got to go along with it. Because it's going to look weird as shit. Like, you take a look at some of the things that are coming out. And the face tattoos, I think, are a big one for lots of millennial people. Like, boomers certainly are just like, what in the fuck? That's a demon. Like, I'd strike you down. You worship the devil. But even millennials are just like, what's with the fucking face tattoos? And, like, the gold teeth and all that shit. Right? Yeah, Gen Z is hardcore, though. That's for sure true. That's for sure true. So whatever happens, we gotta go with them. I think that's the best thing to do. Because if we believe that this culture is irredeemable and should be cleansed away, then part of that is just living in the absurdism and washing it away. Yep, your mother was a hamster, your father smelt of elderberries. I think Monty Python art with horns being blown out of butts. Exactly. Absurdism for absurdism's sake, right? Monty Python's Queen Victoria, yeah. Dennis Moore, riding through the night. Stand and deliver. Your lupines are your life. Yeah, Monty Python's Flying Circus. Gen Z, they do have great memes, yeah. I still haven't begun to find someone who can help me apply for PWD. What is PWD? Personal Wellness Disability? I'm back in college with 18 to 19-year-olds. Their memes are pretty lit. Unhinged sense of humor, yeah. Well, you just gotta laugh at it, dude. Von Schwinginger, how you doing, bud? Good to see you. Good to see you, bud. Milo, get out of the garbage, yeah. Follow Comrade Milo. We will all follow Milo, Comrade Milo, through the garbage of capitalism. Hilarious. Yeah. Hi, Ben. Will you please clarify which Q you were referring to? I assume QAnon. Is there another Q? Fun fact, best friend is Gen Z. We're trying to build socialist movement here at PEI. Good for you, Eric. Get it done. Yeah, Gen Z and millennials have had to deal with the breakdown of capitalism together far closer than my Gen X brethren. Yeah, that's definitely true. Person with disability, yeah. The provincial disability program in BC, yeah. I do need to get him into more theory. Yeah, that's a different story, yeah. He's more than willing to get into theory once he gets his bachelor. Q from Star Trek The Next Generation, yeah. Is Ben suddenly bringing Star Trek in? He's just like, screw Q. Fucking, we don't need any, like, goddish, overmindish trickster demons judging humanity for whether or not we can be spacefaring people. Thank you very much. I think that the existence of the Q continuum is something that we need to get more offensive about. It's going, Von Schwingener, dude. The revolution, we're continuing it, right? It's I gotta tell you, dude, I'm just happy you guys are all here, man. Right? I'm just happy you're all here. Cause like things are getting wonky, man. Right? Just look at so we've caught up with the chat. Let's just do the headlines, right? England braces for 40-degree temperatures, and they warned thousands could die. Normal society, right? Like, after the longest period in history without an increase, the federal minimum wage today is worth 27% less than 13 years ago, and 40% less than 1968. Normal society. My favorite, dude. This is something that I actually want to talk about. Like this was a crazy moment. This was a crazy ass moment that is going to stand as like a seminal, just absolutely incredible moment in American history. John Bolton openly admits his roles in planning foreign coups. I don't know if you've seen the video of this, but Bolton is literally talking about Donald Trump's January 6th insurrection. And he says, nah, you gotta be smart to plan coups. Trump's not smart enough to plan a coup. Believe me, I've planned many coups. Not here, of course. Right? He just openly admits on national television that's recorded and broadcast everywhere. Whoa, wow. That's right. John Paul. Ow. You just bit me. You just bit me. You're going to stay here for a while, buddy. This guy. It's almost as though he doesn't want to be picked up. Right? Ow, dude. You real got me, dude. Like, you real got me. Look, you really got me, dude. Ow. Like, John Bolton openly admits his role in planning foreign coups, and nothing's going to happen to him. Right? These guys know that there's no consequences for them anymore. Right? They know that they can say what they like. They can talk about anything they like. Like, Bolton could have got, like... Can you imagine being the person who was interviewing him? Like, if John Bolton admitted to me, oh yeah, I planned many a coup, my first question would be like, oh yeah? Which coups? Which coups did you help orchestrate? Can you please tell the American people, John Bolton? Which governments did you openly coup? Can we turn this into a fucking confession letter? But it's just like total case in point that like there's no law in America. There's no legal system in America. There's no structure that's going to pursue John Bolton for his overt, like he's confessing to war crimes. He's confessing to a war crime. And yeah, can you imagine if John Bolton saw a serious interviewer ever? Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah. Well, honestly, is anyone really shocked the U.S. State Department and the CIA does coups? Dude, the people who still say to me, well, communism killed a bunch of people. Communism is responsible for killing more people than any other people of the people. I'm literally like, dude, like, are you kidding me? Like... capitalism is like an atrocity generator. and now is producing leadership that openly admits to doing it. And we're all just supposed to be like, normal society, just everybody go out and vote. Just go out and vote. We gotta vote harder, guys. These fascists are only gonna respond if we vote harder. When we put the ballot in the ballot box, then they'll really respond to us. They'll really get what we think we want to say because we put a ballot in a ballot box. Vote. Like, fuck off, dude. Yeah, Bolton's coups are in the service of empire, exactly. QAnon is really stupid stuff. Yeah. I actually really sympathize with those QAnon people. Like, I really do. Like, again, you hear me say this a lot on this channel, right? At least they know something's gone wrong. Like, that's really what it comes down to. Like, yeah, a lot of their theories are dumb. Like, remember when they were saying that JFK Jr.'s death was faked, and that he's going to reveal himself and then be Trump's running mate? Remember that? I remember that shit when they were saying that stuff. Like, they say some of the craziest, most bonkers shit you're ever going to hear in the world. But, like, at base, they are people who acknowledge that something's gone wrong. And there's this great documentary series called Q Into the Storm that I really do highly advise everybody watch. Q Into the Storm was made by a fellow who he was at Republican rallies and he started seeing the Q. And he acknowledged right away that this was a moment, that this is a movement, rather. He knew right away that this was something. And so he really pushed in and did some really, really good investigative journalism on this story and spent a lot of his time on it and captured some really, really powerful and interesting stuff. And one of the things that I think he really captured was that a lot of these QAnon people... All right, I'm just going to say it how I'm going to say it, and I apologize if I stumble into something in terms of, like, the semantic language, okay? A lot of these people are literally, like, mentally handicapped. And I think a lot of these people are dim-witted. Like I genuinely do think that what I saw when I saw... No, it's the letter Q into the storm. What I saw when I was watching this was a lot of people who have been abandoned by the state and who have been abandoned by the society, who don't understand what's going on, who don't understand what's happening to them, but who have acknowledged that what they're seeing on the television isn't real. Right? They know that much. That this TV is lying. And so what did they do? Well, they turned and they created a community that's trying to discover the truth and trying to figure it out. But they got swindled. Right? They got co-opted. And they fell for this idea that Donald Trump gave a shit about them. I think that was probably the biggest turning point for the Q movement, was this idea that the political power structure actually cared about them. And every so often, the Q movement spits a figure out that actually does go somewhere. Like Marjorie Taylor Greene is of this group, right? People like Lauren Boebert. And really, anytime I've ever seen anybody go to a QAnon movement, go to a rally, go to something where there are people who are involved, all I see is a lot of salesmen and I see a lot of people with mental illnesses. That's what I see. And I think it's very, very sad. I think it's very, very sad. And the QAnon movement, as dangerous as I think it's become, because it's been co-opted by fascists, right? But the people themselves, I'm very, very, like, my heart breaks. My heart breaks. Because that's what we've done to our most vulnerable. That the most vulnerable people in the society have been completely duped into believing the world operates one way when it doesn't. Like, and what's extra heartbreaking about it is that they're reacting to betrayal. So they've been betrayed. And then now they've created like a little group and a little thing that they've put their chips in with, and they don't recognize that they've been betrayed again. And I think it would really kill a lot of them to realize they've been betrayed again. And that's why Donald Trump has to be like the savior, right? That's why Donald Trump has to be the icon of change and of goodness, and he's going to drain the swamp and all this kind of stuff. Because to be betrayed again, I think it'd be too much for a lot of these guys. Not co-opted. Q is fascist from the word go. I don't know if that's true. I don't know about that. We could debate that, Ben. I think we both agree, though, that Q has become part of a larger fascist movement. For sure, that's the case. Were they fascist from the word go? I'm not. Yeah. I mean, a lot of it is 4chan kids, right? There is a lot of 4chan shit going on. Yeah. Yeah. That's. Yeah. Like, yeah, I see where you're coming from, Ben. I don't know that I would fight you too hard, you know? I think any conversation we had about that would be more out of curiosity than anything else. Yeah. You're exactly right, John. They've essentially tuned out of this society and are prepared to the most ridiculous things to make sense of the system they thought would save them. Well, in a way, it's this Dadaism, right? It's just less intentional, you know? Like, they're attempting to cleanse the society through absurdism. And what could possibly be more absurd than Donald Trump is going to save us? Like, for real, dude. Like, if I was having a problem and someone came up to me and said, "Don't worry, John, Donald Trump is coming to fix this," I would be like, excuse me? No. Like, no. Unless that problem was literally, like, what problem could Donald Trump, like, really solve immediately? I can't really think of anything that, like, Donald Trump could, like, really... Unless the issue I was having was that I couldn't convince a dupe to do something. Then I'd be like, oh, okay, maybe Donald Trump can convince this dupe to do something. Q had a saying, "You are the media now." Yeah, that's right. Supply side economics, more like we decide when to supply economics. Got him, Barnabas. Bobert's restaurant got closed by the owner of the building it was in. LMAO, shooter this. But the more I learn about Lauren Boebert, dude, the more I see her as just this, like, reviled, like, just a terrible person, right? Just a terrible, shitty ass person whose entire life is just like one comical grift after another. That, like, the only way you could ever tell the story of Lauren Boebert would be as a comedy. I just don't think you could actually do, like, a dramatic telling of that story and have people take it seriously. Like, her life story is just like a comedy. And here she is, fucking in Congress. I don't think lead poisoning, dementia, and syphilis are credited enough for the Q movement. That's pretty brutal, dude. QAnon is definitely now an arm of the fascist movement. Yeah, that's for sure the truth, right? It intersects with much of the moralistic Christo-fascists. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And like, if they aren't part of the Christo-fascists because they are underneath the Trump umbrella, right? They're like a wedge of it, right? So like, and could very easily be co-opted. Basically, whoever Donald Trump points at, and I think it's going to be Don Jr., honestly. Like, I think the thing that's scary to think about is what comes after Trump. And my gut tells me that it is Don Jr. And the reason why I think Don Jr. is actually a much more terrifying figure than Donald Trump is that, like, Donald Trump, I think, is basically just a big ego that really has just, like, been swinging his dick around and is just existing in the space as just this living embodiment of hubris, right? I don't think he has much by way of goals, right? I don't think he has much by way of any of that kind of stuff. That his goal was really to just be the president, you know? What's interesting, so here's a great comparison, actually. So, like, Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, is kind of what you'd expect someone who is the son of a powerful person to be like. Just a burnout loser who does a bunch of coke, has sex with strippers, right? Obviously faces no consequences for anything he does. Literally just spends all his time partying, being coked up, and and a weirdo generally, right? His ambition is literally to do this and then die, right? And if Don Jr. was like that, I would be not concerned about him at all, right? But he's not like that. Like, Don Jr. takes elocution lessons. Don Jr. goes around and does speeches. Don Jr.'s trying to build himself up to be his father's replacement. I think he really, like, almost immediately, when Donald Trump got the presidency, I think Don Jr. realized that this could be him, that he could do this. And ever since that moment, he's been training. He's been training to do it. And that, to me, is super dangerous. Like, Don Jr. being the president, that feels a lot more dangerous. Because the truth is that I think Donald Trump, while Donald Trump is like this living embodiment of hubris, I don't think he's power mad, right? Like, I people try to pretend as though Donald Trump is power mad, right? But I don't think he is. I think he likes power, obviously. Like, why else be the president, right? And all of that. But I don't think he's power mad, right? Whereas Don Jr., I think, could go power mad. And what do I mean by this, right? That, like, Donald Trump isn't going to do a incredibly insane shit because Donald Trump doesn't really have any stakes in it, right? He doesn't take it personally if like the Iranian National Guard throws some bombs and shit. No, dude, you're not like Don Jr. would have gone in. Don Jr. would have gone in. Like, this is that's a good moment to talk about in regards to what I'm saying now, right? Like, Trump had the good sense to stay away, right? Like, because Trump understands that it's largely showmanship, right? He understands that. Don Jr., I think, would have gone in. And Don Jr., I think, would have been more serious about it. Or else he wouldn't have even done it, right? Like, I think that Don Jr. has the potential to take a lot of things personally. And get that thing, like, he doesn't want to live under his daddy's shadow, right? People said this a lot about W, right? That testimony. All right. I saw that testimony. Yep, it was a testimony, all right. Like, I think what can happen a lot to sons who live under their father's shadows is that they feel like they've got something to prove, right? They feel like they've got something they got to go in and do something, right? And let's not fool ourselves. I think that what happened in Iraq with W, right, George W. Bush, there was definitely some for my daddy involved in that. For sure there was. Like, if that had been Al Gore, do you think we actually would have gone in to Iraq? Like, it just seems to me like there was a lot of bravado going on and a lot of familial politics in play. And I'll say it over and over again to really remind everybody every time. Familial politics supersedes every other form of politics every single time. That people don't like to talk about the reality that exists between George Bush and then his son George W. Bush, right? Not a lot of paper has been written about the relationship between those two, right? Like but they're family. Like, that's his dad, right? And it definitely counts. Yes, in fact, imperial expansion is imperial expansion. Like, the invasion of Iraq is, like, that's a very... I just don't think it goes down this way. Really. Like, unless you've got some, like, familial energy to it. Like, really. It really is, like, aggressively stupid. The invasion of Iraq is, like, aggressively stupid. It's a type of destructive... How does one explain non-compete contracts to Halliburton? Well, I mean, again, like, we know that, what's his name? The vice president, Dick Cheney. Like, yeah, it's obviously a grift, right? It's obviously a grift. Like, Dick Cheney obviously wants a lot of money for himself. Like, pretty straightforwardly there. But, like, I think that without the familial tie and without the familial energy, right, it likely doesn't go down this way. Out of curiosity, are you stopping the number drop as well with your no video policy? No, I'm not, because it's never binged me. It's never binged me. All right, it's never binged me. Let's do it. We got 7 people watching, a whole 7. Glad you guys are here though. We got a 7. I'm still in with the 7, man. 7. We got all 7s. That's probably pretty echoey, right? I've never been able to solve this stupid audio problem. It's driving me crazy too. I gotta really dig down and do it one day. Swirl the numbers. Here we go. It's a 7. I can feel it. It's a 7 today.
Today's number is 1.
We all miss it. Everybody misses it. We're all losers today. Everybody's going 7 in the chat. That's hilarious. Nope. It's all a 1. It's all a 1. We all lose. Yeah, Lynch with his stupid esoteric knowledge. Yeah, David Lynch. Yeah, Von Schmidt, have you not been here for that? David Lynch does a number draw every single day. A 1. It was a 1, Barnabas. Nope. Ligandie's in late with a 8. Nope, it was a 1. Yeah. Why does David Lynch do a number draw every single day, you might ask yourself? What a great question. I have no idea, dude. No idea. Milo's licking is loud and not echoed. Yeah, of course, because he's right here. He was just drinking some water right now. And now he's at his food bowl being like, give me more food. No, you're fat. You're fat. You need to lose weight, buddy. You got to lose at least 4 more pounds, okay? You got to lose at least 4 more pounds. I believe in you, buddy. You can do it. You can do it. So, Zelensky fires security chief, top prosecutor, over treason concerns within their departments. Things are stable in Ukraine. Things are stable in Ukraine. Things are stable in, things are stable in, things are stable in Ukraine. Like, if you're firing your security chief and the top prosecutor over treason concerns, things are not going well. Things are not going well. What a great question. When are the Ukrainian presidential elections? That's a good question. 2024. If they make it, if it's not another coup, right? So we still got another 2 years of Mr. Zelensky here, if they make it. I mean, he is firing his security chief and top prosecutor over treason concerns. Like, yikes. In particular, more than 60 employees of the prosecutor's office and the security service of Ukraine have remained in the occupied territory and work against our state. Such an array of crimes against the foundations of the state's national security and the links recorded between Ukrainian security forces and Russian special services raises very serious questions about their respective leaders. He dismissed Prosecutor General Irina Venedikovta and replaced her with Deputy Alexei Simonenko. Man, like, Ukrainian counteroffensive looms in the south. They're trying to make a big deal about the Ukrainian. There's like going to be a Ukrainian counter a defensive. Zelensky, he's not going to get disappeared. He's playing his part. He's doing what he's supposed to do, and he's doing it pretty reasonably well. The trouble with, like, quote unquote disappearing Zelensky is that too much has been made of him. Right? There, too many people in North America are sitting there going, what a hero. What a champion of the people. Fighting the fight against these aggressive Russians. If he suddenly, like, vanishes, like, got some splaining to do. Yeah, Russia's offensive in eastern Ukraine. So even CBC is reporting on the battle line here. It's highly unlikely that the Ukrainians are going to have a successful... wow, the first time I've ever seen the CBC actually use the word Donbass in their reporting. How about that? Yet Russian officials are urging those troops to produce even more territorial gains. Yeah. To further intensify the actions of units in all operational areas. Yeah, that's exactly what I thought, Watson. Like, they could disappear him and then say the Russians did it. Which would be completely senseless from the Russians' perspective. Like, the Russians want Zelensky there. Right? Aha! Stalin won! The West 0. Alright. This is the article I really wanted to read today, honestly. The rest of it's just kind of headlines. I love this article, though, because it's so, like, it's reporting on how there is propaganda while itself being propaganda. On July 8th, Canada's Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly announced new sanctions against Russia as a counter to the Kremlin's disinformation activities aimed at Canada. Ukraine and the West have long been a target of the Kremlin's disinformation campaigns. Since the annexation of Crimea in 2014, Russia has used a variety of information warfare tactics to destabilize the Ukraine government and undermine the legitimacy of democratic governments around the world. I love this because it's like acting like the Russians' information warfare tactics to destabilize the government, undermine legitimacy of democratic governments around the world. Like, you know who does that better than anybody else? The United States. Absolutely. In recent years, as part of its bid to shape public perception of their action on the world stage, Russia has deployed an army of bots, trolls, this is the Russiagate shit, right? It's the Russiagate narrative. And this was published like 2 days ago or something, July 17th, so yesterday, right? And still, we're still supposed to be like, oh yeah, bots, trolls, and hackers. That's really fucking changing everything, right? Like this is it, right? All right, blah, blah, blah. Since the start of Russia's invasion of Ukraine in February, the Social Media Lab's conflict misinformation dashboard has tracked over 1,000 false, misleading, and unproven claims. Some of these claims were spread by Russian government officials and their proxies. For example, in the early months of the war, the Kremlin was actively spreading the unsubstantiated claim that chemical and biological weapons are being covertly developed in Ukraine. This is a confirmed story. The United States State Department confirmed it. Right? Like, look how hard they're trying to just, like, maintain the propaganda narrative. Like, the U.S. State Department confirmed that they were making chemical and biological weapons in Ukraine. Yeah, exactly, methane. Exactly. Right? 2 days ago, an article published in the Conversation trying to be like, man, we've fallen for propaganda. Like these true stories. Remember all these true stories that are real and confirmed? Well, they're propaganda. And Canada's Communications Security Establishment has raised concern about Russia's online state-sponsored disinformation campaign, blah, 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 blah. What's my other favorite one? We asked a bunch of people about it, blah, blah, blah. The most prevalent claim encountered by 35% of Canadians was Ukrainian nationalism is a neo-Nazi movement. A false narrative that has long been debunked by numerous fact-checkers. Like, and then they go to this article. Oh, it's a classic, like, Zelensky is Jewish. Right? Literally, like, ignore the, straight up ignore that. Let's just do a quick, like, Control F, Donbass. Literally no mention of Donbass, Azov. Oops. Oh my goodness. Azov. Yeah, literally no mention of Azov. Debunked! No Bandera movement. Nothing. Debunked. Completely debunked. False claim. Yeah. And it gets even better, dude. It gets even better. Listen, however, it is the claim that NATO expansion that gained the most traction with the Canadian public. Specifically, nearly half of Canadians, 49%, believed at least to some extent that since the end of the Cold War, NATO has surrounded Russia with military bases and broken their promise to not offer NATO membership to former USSR republics, like Ukraine. This is like observable fact. Like, literally, they just said to us, some Canadians believe that the sky is blue. Russian propaganda. Next, we looked for a connection between political ideology and people's propensity to believe pro-Kremlin propaganda. So here they are, trying to create a political enemy that they can do something about. Right? This is my favorite part. Who are the people who are telling the truth about Russia? Who are the people who see the truth about Russia? Or about Ukraine, rather? Who are the people who are actually seeing? Right? The scale is designed. So which political ideology? Our analysis shows that left-leaning Canadians are consistently less likely to believe the truth overall as compared to Canadians who hold mixed or right-leaning views. So liberals are good bootlickers, is what we just read. Conversely, those who hold right-leaning ideologies are more likely to believe in pro-Kremlin propaganda overall, as compared to Canadians who hold mixed or left-leaning views. Right? For instance, 57% of Canadians who believe the claim that Ukrainian nationalism is a neo-Nazi movement reported preferring social media as a source of news. So, like, they're also demonizing social media outlets here. Like, this article is doing so much. Yeah, only opinions matter now, not facts and true things. Yeah. And here's the haunting line at the end of it all, right? Left unchallenged, state-sponsored information operations can stoke tensions and undermine democracy. Like, what do they mean by left unchallenged? How would they challenge the truth? Right? Because, like, we saw at least 3 claims here which I consider to be true. Right? That there definitely is a Nazi movement within Ukraine. Like, 100%. There definitely is NATO expansion. 100%. Like, 100%. The biological labs. 100%. It's all, that's all confirmed. When when these people poll and when they say left, they mean liberal. Right? Like, that's another part of the propaganda, right? Is to pretend as though liberals are on the left. Right? Because if liberal is as far left as you're allowed to go, then any further to the left of that is just crazy. That's just crazy fringism, right? Yeah, it's even worse than that. Opinions don't matter as much as the perception of your opinion. The true opinions and motivations are secreted away now. Yeah. Like, what matters is being part of the in-group. That's what matters, right? So it doesn't matter if your in-group is professing reprehensible opinions or whatever. What matters is that you're in the in-group. Yep, the WSWS did a 5-part series on the Banderites and how they are intertwined with the Canadian government. Yeah. I read all 5 parts. Yeah. Debunked. False narrative. Doesn't exist. And it's just those loony-toony right-wingers. Loony-toony right-wingers. Right? Right? Meanwhile, the NDP are just like straight up like, what the media is telling us is right. We're completely, I completely buy into that. Yeah. Like, I don't know, guys. Would it be so bad if the Conservatives took over? How bad would it be, really? Would it be worse than this? Oh, that was a while back I did that. I love that you guys keep using binderies. Your autocorrects are changing it to binderies. That's so funny, dude. Yes, I know, Watson. I was being facetious. All right. Canada is showering arms dealers with money while 1 in 4 can't afford groceries. Normal country we live in. Isn't it great to live in Canada where we don't give a shit about the poor, but here's some money for some rich cock-sucking moron. Take our money. Take our money. Right? Yeah. The federal government would need to increase military spending by another $75 billion before 2027 to meet NATO's target. Just to remind everyone, the cost that the Prime Minister's office has said a basic income would cost is $100 billion. Right? I'm all for the conservative change. Difficult to imagine much worse than this. I mean, we could definitely get worse than this, dude. I recently learned an interesting fact. Sweden is the 3rd largest weapon exporter in the world. Yeah. Yeah, I think Skippy is going to do it. All of the polling data, like if I go to 338 right now, right? Like 338 politics. Like, here's the 338 federal projection. If the election was held today, right? If the election's held today, you're basically tied right now between the Liberals and the Conservatives. Yeah, you're right about this, dude. The Conservatives are definitely militarists. Like, they for sure are gonna for sure and then federal polls. Sometimes you get polls like this, right? You can see how on the it really kicks up. So we'll see how it goes, man. We'll see how it goes. But I feel like Skippy's going to get it done. I think the liberals are afraid of him. I think the liberals are actually afraid of Pierre. Because I think Pierre Poilievre, like, he sounds good, he looks good, he knows how to lie properly, right? Like, I think he's got a real chance at it. Defeating inflation doesn't mean having to harm workers. Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. Well, you can't tax the rich. Can you imagine if we actually taxed the rich? Like, here we go. Concluding paragraph. Ultimately, the capitalist class, left to its own devices, will get out of this crisis by extracting enormous amounts of pain from workers. At the heart of a left economic agenda needs to be an understanding of inflation as a site of class conflict, and to organize our side accordingly. This requires specific policy demands and a labor movement that can organize for concrete economic gains, and against the pressure to make workers pay for a crisis they did not create. Like, once again, I'm just finding myself saying, stop making these articles about, like, what we need to do is. Like, start asking, why aren't we? That's a more interesting question. Start asking this question, why aren't we? Like, I'm so sick and tired of these people making these articles and being like, so it's important for us to move forward with this policy agenda. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. We got to ask why. Who's Skippy? Pierre Poilievre. Yeah, for some reason too. I don't even know. It just seems to be a nickname that he got stuck with. I see lots of people call him that. So I'm like, okay, I'm in. He looks like a Skippy. He looks like Milhouse, right? I think that's what it is ultimately. Pierre. He just kind of looks like a Milhouse sort of character, right? So I think people just call him Skippy because he looks like a Skippy. Don't you think? Just looks like a beanhead, you know? I look at this guy and I'm just like, what a dork. Sorry, Von Schringer. Yeah. He is the fellow who is most likely to become the leader of the Conservative Party. He's not yet the leader of the Conservative Party, but he is. He's definitely in the lead in the leadership because they're doing their leadership conventions right now, and he's definitely in the lead. People like the liberal establishment wants it to be this other fellow by the name of Jean Charest, but it's going to be Pierre Poilievre, and Pierre Poilievre is doing a really good job of reaching out to the Freedom Convoy people, doing a really good job of reaching out to the PPC people, right? Yeah, everything's coming up Milhouse. For sure, dude. For sure. I think he can do it. And he looks good, he sounds good, he says all the right things, he lies very well. Yeah, of course, Jacobin thinks this organization can be done through the current AFL, CIO, CLC paradigm. Yeah, good luck with that. Yeah, because that's been working out. We already talked about Pat King. The House just passed a record high $840 billion military budget. The same amount as all the stimulus checks combined. Guess then they print money for people, it's socialists, but when they do it for military contractors, it's bipartisan. Dude, the Conan O'Brien years were the best years. Those were the funniest years. The problem that the Simpsons have encountered is that they themselves, as figures, are now irrelevant. That Homer Simpson is a single wage earner with 3 kids, a spouse who doesn't work, a car, they go on vacation all the time. It's incoherent. Like, it doesn't make sense. Homer only makes sense as a boomer, right? Like that if you are 35 or 40 living in the 80s, Homer makes a lot of sense. And so does Bart and Lisa and all the characters, right? That you see yourself in them. But as the society changed, the Simpsons didn't. And so now they're incomprehensible to us, which is why they have had to change the structure of the show and basically took off after they took up the Family Guy mantle, basically. They just copy Family Guy, essentially, right? Homer's just a stupid idiot who does stupid, dumb shit, right? His sidekick is Bart. So instead of it being Peter and Brian, it's Homer and Bart, right? And I think that the Simpsons could actually reclaim its position, but it would have to address some real shit. Like, if you want to see a version of The Simpsons that actually makes sense on television today, you want to watch Bob's Burgers. Bob's Burgers makes a lot of sense, right? Because Bob is running a burger joint he owns, and everybody in the family works in it. And I'm like, yeah, that I believe. Right? That I can look at and be like, yeah, here's a guy who owns the business. They literally sleep in an apartment in the building, so he owns the building, or at least is a renter. No, he rents the building. That's right. He has a landlord, and they acknowledge he has a landlord, right? So that's always very nice. And the relationship between him and the landlord is real, like it's an actual thing. Although it's got that kind of kooky layer. Anyway. But, like, Bob and Linda and his kids all make sense, right? They exist in the world. Whereas the Simpsons don't exist in the world anymore. They're completely disconnected from anything I've ever seen, right? Like, if I found a man like Homer Simpson living in the world at my age, I'd be like, what the fuck? Yeah, dude, I recommend Bob's Burger to everybody. Bob is a very sympathetic. You really, really root for Bob. And Linda and his kids. All of the characters are really strong. Everybody's very, very sympathetic, and everybody's journey is very relatable. Very relatable show. Very, very relatable show. And yeah, I wish my family would have had an actual business that made sense instead of selling me into slavery. That would have been great. I've been meaning to watch that show. Haven't seen it yet. Yeah, it's good. It is the newest. It's like the newest iteration of The Simpsons is what it is. Let's take a relatable family, right? Put them in the actual world, and then of course crazy, zany, wacky things happen. But as those crazy, wacky, zany things are happening, you relate because things have happened in your life that you would describe as somewhat zany or unbelievable, right? It happens a lot in Bob's Burgers. And I think The Simpsons could reclaim it, right? It would be easy for them to reclaim it. I shouldn't say easy, but like if Homer got laid off from the nuclear power plant, like let's say the plant shuts down or something, or Homer is replaced, right? That he somehow is downsized or something along those lines, and he picks up a job as a bartender at Moe's, let's say, right? That like he starts working like part-time gigs, and starts and legitimately is working in the gig economy. Like that's a legitimate thing that is actually happening. And then Marge needs a job as well. Right? Because she's also dealing with the gig economy and all this shit, right? Give Bart and Lisa like a paper route. Give these kids something that they have to do, right? And it's nuclear. It's pronounced nuclear. Yeah, exactly. And no, like start actually addressing the very serious economic reality of what has happened to small towns and small communities across America. Like to me, that's the real Like, that's what you should condemn The Simpsons for. Like, does everybody remember the Union episode of The Simpsons? Like, imagine if they aired that episode today, right? The Union episode was an incredible episode of The Simpsons. It was an episode of The Simpsons where Homer literally unionized his workforce. Like, Mr. Burns was exploiting his workers, as he does, and so the workers unionized and won and were successful, right? You'd never ever see that episode today, and the fact that The Simpsons are not actually dealing with the like destruction of small communities like Springfield, right? Communities across America have been completely gutted. They've been completely destroyed. Like, big box stores come in and gut them. Amazon warehouses come in and destroy them, right? Like, and we don't see any of it. It's been rendered completely invisible. Instead, Homer goes to the moon or something, right? Like, it's just wacky, dumb Family Guy bullshit. It's not grounded in anything. And so when you watch it, it's funny in a kind of like slapsticky, like Three Stooges sort of way, right? Yeah, so South Park is as South Park is. I don't think that they are being particularly controversial anymore. I think that would be the only thing that I would say about those guys. That I think that they are staying timely, like you say, like their NFT episode, right? But they're not being particularly controversial, right? They're not being particularly like like the first like season of South Park, like that. Some of the stuff that they've said about like the Christian churches are controversial and like crazy, like really aggressive stuff. But like their whole commentary on Trump, I felt was pretty throwaway. Like the whole Trump presidency felt very thrown away. You know, like it was Mr. Garrison was pretending to, and their whole kind of take on Trump was that he didn't really understand, like he didn't really know what he was doing, and he wasn't really meant to be there, right? Barnabas says, anybody showing up to the streets in Toronto? August 1st, 4 p.m. So August 1st, 4 p.m., Bloor and Bedford Road. If you're in Toronto, come on down. Come on down. We're doing a protest. I'm hoping to get some people out. I feel like I've got a good amount who are telling me that they're coming, but we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. Yeah, dude. Don't worry, Bart. I know you're in British Columbia, dude. Like you're not coming. Holy cow, it's getting hot in here. I will say this about South Park. At least South Park's still funny. You know? Like when I watch an episode of South Park, I laugh, and it's funny. So they're still funny. Whereas The Simpsons are no longer funny. Right? Because it's just dumb bullshit all the time. Like, and it's not even really that good at being dumb bullshit. Like the Three Stooges are dumb bullshit, but you laugh because they do it really well. Like their dumb bullshit is really good, right? How about Harrisburg? I don't know anything about Harrisburg, dude. What a time to be alive, man. Yep. Big surprise here, guys. Tenants with large corporate landlords more likely to face poor living conditions, survey suggests. Anybody surprised? Are you sitting over there being like, what? I thought that big, large corporate landlords would improve qualities of life for people. Well, you're wrong. How does that feel, suckers? Harrisburg is the capital of Pennsylvania. See, there you go. I learned something. Harrisburg. Sounds like something from like a Civil War reenactment, right? The soldiers from Harrisburg are coming down. So are you saying that if you tried to do a protest in Harrisburg, you'd get shot? Dude, America's so fucked, bro. Like, what in the fuck is happening in America? Like, it's crazy to me. And it's only going to get wilder, it seems. Wet'suwet'en leader charged with criminal contempt over coastal gas lick pipeline blockade. So, protester publicly defied court order. So the system continues to delegitimize itself, right? We gotta destroy everything, guys, right? We gotta destroy everything. Yeah, more than 24 people arrested in November 2021 during an RCMP crackdown to dismantle blockades. Like, so these people are literally blockading this pipeline. The Crown tells them not to do it, and they do it anyway. Well, now they're actually going to go to prison over it. Right? Yeah, exactly. She looks like a huge threat. Doesn't she? Doesn't she, though? Right? What's her name? Slato. So, she's, as I always say on this channel, right? There are heroes of the movement. Here is one of them. For sure. Like, what are they doing? They're literally just blocking the expansion of a pipeline through Wet'suwet'en territory, which, for those of you who don't know, Wet'suwet'en territory is unceded First Nations land, right? So it's not Canadian land. The Supreme Court of Canada confirms this back in like 2014, I believe, right? So a person like Slato, Molly Wickham, is on Wet'suwet'en land, non-Canadian land, preventing the expansion of a non-Wet'suwet'en company through their land, and now she's being charged in contempt and being arrested for it. Like, this is where we're at. This is where we are. Where the state is making it very clear that if you try to stand up and if you try to prevent the expansion of the death machine, because that's what it is, you will be arrested for it. Like, it's absolutely brutal. And then we turn around and report on temperatures going up to 40, killing thousands of people in the UK, and there's just no connection, right? The Crown has decided to prosecute a total of 19 people. Like, this is an absurd story. This is an absurd story. Ugh. Warmest part of summer yet to come. So it's only just started. Yep. Well, I mean, since when has our system that has clearly delegitimized itself, I say it over and over again, right? Like, the Canadian legal system and the political system, as well as the American system, has delegitimized itself, right? And here's an example of it delegitimizing itself. Like, as clear-cut a case as could be seen. Canadian companies are attempting to force a pipeline through non-Canadian soil and are being prevented by the people who live there, and now those people are being arrested and held in contempt of court for doing what exactly? Preventing people from exploiting their natural resources. Like, it's just colonialism. Like, it's straight up. It's straight up colonialism. And we're supposed to just stand by and watch it happen. While, hey, guess what? Warmest part of the summer yet to come. Ha ha. Enjoy the wildfires. Enjoy the wildfires. I wonder how bad the Canadian wildfire map. I wonder how bad the wildfires are already. I haven't even looked. Like, it's so fucking horrifying. Hey. So, can I get a legend here? I mean, right? I think it's pretty fucking classic shit. Like, we're gonna burn everything down. Extreme fire danger. Active fires. So here's your active fires. Right? A lot in the north here. You got your active fires down here. Not quite down here yet. Not quite down here yet. Interesting. This is like the extreme area, but there's no like active fires. Not yet, anyway. Oh yeah, we'll see how it all goes. We'll see how it all goes. Yeah, you must disrupt the system of profit and will make an example of the weakest links in the working class to hammer point the home. Well, and like, take a look what they're doing to Julian Assange, right? The idea that America wants to like get Julian Assange shipped to America so that they can throw the book at him. Julian Assange is an Australian citizen. Like, he's not even an American citizen. What are they going to charge him with? Like, he's not even part of their legal system. What law did he break exactly? Like, but it doesn't matter, right? Like, the system has delegitimized itself. The people who operate within it don't care about it. Like, they just want to wield power, and they believe they have it because they're the ones that are in the positions. But the system is illegitimate. It doesn't matter. Like, it's insane, and people are just going along with it. Meanwhile, you've even got the New York Times starting to publish articles. This pioneering economist says our obsession with growth must end. Even the New York Times is beginning to publish articles saying, like, hey, maybe this whole idea is stupid as shit. Maybe the whole idea that we're just constantly in a state of total perpetual growth is dumb as fuck. Right? Like, you spent a lifetime arguing rationally and diligently for your ideas. And there is real discussion happening about alternatives to an economy predicated solely on growth. But growth is still king. Is that at all disappointing? My duty is to do best I can, put out some ideas. And what's crazy, I haven't even, like, dug that deep into this guy, but I bet you he's just like a Keynesian. Like, I bet you it's just, like, normal economics. And he's just, like, normal shit. And people are going to take a look at it and be like, wow, he's so pioneering and crazy. And it's literally going to be like, you know, shit we did, like, 100 years ago. Ugh. Oh, my chat is turning into sprint car races, Pennsylvania. Yeah, growth just means ratcheting up the exploitation to keep extracting wealth from the working class. Yeah. Like, if we actually build a society that sustains itself, how do you exploit and siphon off wealth? Right? Like, if the society, if all the work that's done is done just to maintain the society for the benefit of the people who live in the society, and then everybody just uses that system to exist nicely in the society, well, how do you siphon wealth out off of that? You can't. Right? You just don't. So, of course, they need growth, because if you don't have growth, then you can't exploit anything. Right? Fucking bullshit. Like, the rich should shoulder the burden of inflation, not us. Like, yeah, no shit. But, like, stop telling me this. Start asking, why isn't it happening? Because if you actually start asking that question, you might actually get an answer. Right? You might actually get an answer. And the answer that you might get is going to be something along the lines of, oh, the system has delegitimized itself. Like, how can anybody take this seriously anymore? This system that we live in. Right? How can anybody actually take this system seriously anymore? We're living in a society that is actually destroying itself. Like, physically, in front of our eyes. And yet, we're just saying vote harder. We're just doubling down on this idea that if we just invest harder into the system, that as it exists today, that will somehow resolve it. It just feels as though the people who understand something have gone wrong are just falling into a kind of like frantic desperation and a frantic absurdism. And there's no like focus. Yeah, don't talk about the rich, talk about the monopolies. But like, stop pretending like there's something that we can do. Like, I think really what I'm driving at with this statement is it's like we're talking as if we are still in a negotiation when we are not. I think that's really the point of what it is I'm trying to say with this. That I keep seeing these articles that are talking as though what is happening is a negotiation, when it's not a negotiation. We have owners. There are oligarchs who have overwhelmed the systems that we would use to negotiate. The systems that we may have thought of as negotiative systems are no longer capable of that, right? Because they've been so overwhelmed by wealth and power that it's no longer a negotiation. And I'm really getting sick and tired of seeing leftist organizations, Passage, Jacobin, right, publishing these articles. And even when you see like a liberal or a leftist type publish something in like the Toronto Star or something, and everything's being published and talked about as if, oh, all we need to do is like change people's minds, or oh, we just need to act in this way, or we just need to present a better policy, or we need to present any of this kind of stuff. And all of it is dumb. It's dumb, childish bullshit. And I'm so exhausted by it, and I'm so tired of it. I'm so tired of people pretending as though, oh, all we need to do is get a person in a position of power who thought, like, all of that's gone. Like, it's all gone. Like, it's not a negotiation. We know it's not a negotiation. It's obviously not a negotiation. It doesn't matter what we say. It doesn't matter what we think. It doesn't matter what policy we want presented. It doesn't matter. None of it matters. All of this, like, moralizing that we're seeing come out of these fucking articles are just word vomit. They're just like a waste of time. So I don't want to read them on the stream. Where are the articles talking about what do we do about it? Where are the articles talking about like, hey, how do we actually get these people to do any of this stuff? Where are the articles talking about the coup d'etat? Where are the articles talking about the fact that we have experienced a coup in this country, both Canada and the United States, and it is a financial capitalist coup? That we have no political parties, that there is only one party, and all of the discussion that exists between which one of these parties is going to rule the country is literally just WWE sportsmanship. It's no different than having a conversation about who's going to win, Undertaker or Bret the Hitman Hart. And the result of it is going to be exactly the same, which is that Vince McMahon is going to make the money. Like, where are the articles from any of these places, from any source, anywhere, that are actually attempting to address the reality that we live in? That our politics is exclusively theatrical, that it doesn't exist in order to alter the fabric of the nation one way or the other. It doesn't exist for us to articulate ourselves politically. It doesn't exist for us to come together and negotiate how we live in the world. It exists to diffuse that. It exists so that we will believe that putting energy into it will have a tangible result when it won't. And it never will. It can't. It's simply not possible. Because while we are talking about negotiating, our owners are running the place. And they don't care what we think outside of how to manipulate it. I'm so fucking tired of this shit, man. Like, I'm so fucking tired of these like well-meant, well-read, well-researched articles that are all about how we just need to negotiate better. Yeah, these articles you've shown, John, are not arguing for the political independence of the working class. Yeah, right? Forming rank and file committees outside the AFL-CIO CLC labor structure to bring about consciousness in preparation for a general strike. Yeah. I know one place this is actually organizing along these lines. Hey, I would love to talk to those people. Like, and this is the thing, right? These are not leftist organizations; they're pseudo left organizations simply looking to reform things. Like, it's the system won't reform itself, right? It can't. It's not actually possible, right? That, like, we're literally supposed to have looked at the, like, oh wow, NDP, they're pushing through the dental care thing, right? Oh, that's actually happening. It's not going to happen. Right? And we know how it's not going to happen, right? The conservatives are going to get in and then the deal will fall apart. That's how it's planned. That's the structure of the piece. Right? It's exactly what they did with, like, the basic income pilot here in Ontario, the climate change shit here in Ontario, right? That the liberals put forward these sort of policy ideas so that they can maintain power for a little while, and then the conservatives come in and destroy them. It's the ratcheting. Right? We see it all over the place all the time, constantly. And who's the beneficiary? The owners. Right? And it's just going to keep happening. Over and over and over again until we fucking get burnt down. While pretending like it was ever a negotiation. When it isn't. And the reality is that, like, if these places start to acknowledge that the negotiation is actually over, well, then there's only one option left. And that's to surround the halls of power. There's nothing left. Like, these people are not responding. They're not capable of responding. And I just wish I was seeing more talk about that reality. Instead of this fake, just like, oh, we'll just vote every 4 years bullshit. The ICFI has created the IWARFC, International Workers Alliance of Rank and File Committees. All right, man. All right, guys. Well, it's a couple of minutes, but I'm going to close this one down a little bit early. Thanks so much for being here, guys. I really appreciate it. I appreciate each and every one of you. I hope you're all doing well out there. It's like we're documenting the apocalypse, you know? We're documenting the apocalypse. And there's no... Hopefully something will remain so that people can look back on it and be like, oh, there were people who were actually talking about it, and there were people actually trying to do something about it. Thanks, guys. Always remember, each and every one of you is a quantum being walking around in quantum energy. The billionaires are spending hundreds of billions of dollars in the hopes you'll never realize it. You'll just stay the good little commodity they need you to be. Revolt. Rebel. Repent. Good luck. We're going to need it.